Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Tonight is October 7th, and I welcome everyone to the Destin City Council meeting. Up first is going to be the invocation by Pastor Kevin from the Grace Lutheran Church. Thank you so much for being here. So if everyone can please rise.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, from you comes all due authority over the nations and states and cities of the world for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of those who do well. We humbly ask you to graciously regard these your servants in our city of Destin, these who make, administer, and judge the affairs of this city. Look with mercy upon them and grant them to bear the authority that you've given them according to your command. Enlighten and defend them, and give them wisdom and understanding that by reasoned and peaceable governance your people may be guarded and directed in righteousness, quietness, and unity. Protect and preserve their lives, that we with them may show forth the praise of your holy name. We pray this in the name of him who reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, him who is fully God, born fully man also, to live the perfect life, to die the perfect sacrifice, to rise from the dead the perfect resurrection and life, your Son and Savior from sin, ascended to heaven, and to return again the last day to judge the living and the dead, even Jesus the Christ. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God the Father, the communion of the Holy Spirit be and abide with you. Amen.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, Councilwoman Naber with the pledge.
Please join me with your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated. I think that's yours. All right, so with it being a full house, I just wanted to go over a little bit of some housekeeping rules. We're going to be going into when we go into the public comments, please know that we will have a separate public comment for the public hearing. So if you're here for 5A or 5B, that's going to be the livery and the billboards. Please hold your public comments to those public hearing items specifically. So that's really all I have. Other than that, public comments are your first chance to speak on any other topic, and then you'll have another time to speak at the very end of this meeting. There is no open forum while the council is deliberating and voting up here, so please say your piece at your public comments on either the front or back end of this meeting. Thank you. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion for the agenda or any substitutes or changes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. While we are figuring out some IT, we're going to do a vocal roll call. So, Councilman Stevens, please come down.
Yes.
Yes.
I vote yes.
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 Yes. All right. Ayes have it unanimously. So moved. The agenda is approved. We are going to go into a proclamation. So I will meet you guys up at the front. Thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. All right. Brings you back to high school where the teacher calls on you, and now you got to read a portion of the paragraph, and here we go. Try not to mess it up. All right. City of Destin proclamation. American Cancer Society making strides against breast cancer of the Emerald Coast. Whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer diagnosis among women in the United States, and it is the second leading cause of death from cancer among women. And whereas in 2022, the United States had estimated 287,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer diagnosed among women, 43,250 women died because of this disease, and more than 4 million women had a history of invasive breast cancer who are living with this disease. And whereas in 2022, the United States had approximately 2,710 new cases of invasive breast cancer diagnoses among men and 530 male deaths due to the disease. Whereas the City of Destin publicly places its full support behind those who work in the field of mental health, education, and law enforcement, and whereas the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer program is a 3 to 5 mile non-competitive walk that has collectively grown into the largest network of breast cancer awareness events in the nation, uniting communities with the shared determination in the fighting to end breast cancer. And whereas the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer program has united our communities in raising money to help the American Cancer Society, funding breakthrough breast cancer research, provided free information and support, and help reduce breast cancer risk for allowing easy detection so that it may be more treatable. And whereas the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer of the Emerald Coast envisions a future where children no longer live with the threat of breast cancer, and whereas everyone has a fair and just opportunity to prevent, find, treat, and survive this disease. And whereas supporting Making Strides Against Breast Cancer of the Emerald Coast movement will help ensure the American Cancer Society can continue fighting for the same vision. Now, therefore, I, Bobby Wagner, by virtues of the authority vested in me as mayor of the City of Destin, do hereby proclaim and recognize the month of October 2024 as Making Strides Against Breast Cancer Month in Destin, and encourage Destin citizens to help save lives through breast cancer screening by dedicating their businesses and their neighborhood to promotion and awareness in pink as part of the movement, and to participate in Making Strides Against Breast Cancer of the Emerald Coast, held at Northwest Florida State College in Niceville on October 12th, 2024 at 9 a.m. So thank you guys so much. I'll do a photo and then I'll let you guys talk. So here you go. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Do you want to say anything?
Thank you, everybody, for the proclamation. Love to see you out at Northwest Florida State College this Saturday at 9 a.m.
I think that.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that. All right, we're up to public comments. So again, just a reminder, if you're here for the billboards or the livery vessels, you will have your own individual time to speak on that. So with that, I'm going to start with my right, y'all's left. Is anyone here like to speak for anything else other than those two comments? Jump in. Yep, I'm sure there will be more after you.
I just wanted to mention, I know the high school has a baseball contract here, and I'm not opposing the contract. I just think there needs to be some tweaks in it. I think there should be a review by both council, staff, and the school every 5 years, just to keep updated on what's going on and where everything is. And I think what I didn't get from the lease agreement was, is this only for the high school, or are we sharing this? I'm hoping you can clarify that in the discussion tonight. And if we are sharing this, one of the things that Recreation has struggled with is not getting the schedule in fast enough to be able to schedule anything else on that field. So if that's the case, then I think we need to work on that too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, anyone else? It's off in the middle. Oh, Shane. Knocking out the regulars.
Gee, thanks. If I'm a regular, put me in a recliner back there. Just really quickly, I want to thank the city for letting us use this room last week for our e-car Destin Chamber Candidate Forum. Thank those of you that are up for re-election for participating in it, along with the others who are not up for re-election at the time, but who are running for office. And big shout out to Tamara. It was either one phone call, one text, or one email. I can't remember which it was, but it was one, and she took care of setting it up for us. So I just want to thank the city for their cooperation, as always, on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your participation in that. All right. Yes, sir. Name, address, and the floor is yours. Just push that gray button so the light turns red. Oh, there you go.
All right. My name is Palmer Robbins, and my address is 4368 Stonebridge Road. So I'm a junior at Destin, so I played baseball freshman year and sophomore year. And I'm part of like National Honor Society, the Youth Council of Destin, which he was the head of it. And I just, like on the behalf of all of us, my teammates, faculty, and everybody, thank you for even, whether y'all vote yes or no, even considering it, to keep the hope, my dream, to play baseball in Destin, as everybody before us has had to go to Fort Walton, South Walton, Niceville, and all of that. So it's just the one thing that like is holding us back from getting everybody from like Destin Middle School, who we've been good at baseball, is the field. So I feel like just getting this, I just appreciate it, just giving us a chance. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, lights on, so name and address.
Good evening, Mayor and council people. My name is Heidi Lo Cicero, Maddie's Way, Destin, Florida. Thank you for all you have done thus far to help our students of Destin, in particular our baseball team, be able to have a home field. It is very difficult to play other places and never really have a place to call home. And if you're a believer, you probably know what a God wink is. I hope Kevin is still here. Is he here, or did he already leave? So we wouldn't be here as Destin High School. I'm the governing board president. And we would not be here without most of you who were on the council when we came before you many times begging to help us start a high school. You guys gave us the first money. You gave us the first encouragement and ideas to build a school. Kevin was Grace Lutheran, where our campus sits. I consider that, I'm a believer, I consider that hallowed ground. And for him to start tonight's meeting with a prayer, unbeknownst to these students and these baseball players, the way he did, I feel like what a great sign that is for the youth of Destin, to see all these things come right back together. You guys, in particular, Lisa Firth, which I'm sure she's back here, and her team have worked tirelessly with Councilman Giles, the mayor, many of you we've spoken to individually, asking you to consider this for our kids. We have a saying at Destin. Our cheerleaders could probably say it now. It's "We are Destin." And if you come to a football game, a baseball game, a chorus event, a musical extravaganza that our students do, you hear them say that, right, guys? How does it go? We are Destin. A little louder. They're a little tired. They've been up since 6 for school. We are Destin. That's what we want to be. We want to be Destin. We want to have a home field advantage. We want to play on our fields that we all are part of in this town. I love this school. I love these kids. I love our faculty. I know our baseball team has something special. And I'm fine with reviewing the contract and making tweaks as we need be. But I want to thank you guys thus far, Lisa, like I said, for even listening to us and being willing to help us become Destin all the way around. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce our new principal, Dr. Kelly, because we've been wanting you to meet her. She is going to come up and speak to you after. Mr. Williams, our executive director, is going to come up next. And then he'll introduce Dr. Kelly. We're excited for y'all to come to campus and get to know our leadership team and see all of the incredible changes that have happened on campus. I think you'll be very proud. And for those of you who come to campus all the time, I'm grateful. And if I still have some of my 3 minutes, right?
Wrapping up.
Well, Bobby's going to want me to wrap it up after this. If y'all get a chance, ask him what the referees thought. At the football game this week, he was our celebrity coin tosser at last week's game. And we're all out there with the captains of the football team, and the man's looking at his watch, and I'm like, are we going to toss the coin or what? And he said, we're waiting on your mayor. I said, that's him right next to you. He goes, that guy? I said, yeah, that is the mayor. He goes, well, he's good looking. I thought he was going to say young. He said, good looking. I said, I know, we just have the best in Destin.
Now you're definitely over 3 minutes.
Yeah. I told you it would be sad. But thank you in particular for all the love you give to our high school. We notice it.
Of course, thank you.
Good evening, Willie Williams, the Executive Director of Destin High School. My address is 4 Creek Court, Destin. Bobby, it's good to see you tonight. To the rest of the council members, thanks for having us this evening. We are excited about this opportunity. I know that there's been some historical pieces that have not worked their way through, but what I'm excited about tonight is that we have worked really close with the council, with the Parks and Recs department, and we feel like we're ready to get this thing across the finish line. And just so as we come tonight, I've said it to the council before, and I'll say it again, a city that doesn't put resources into its youth doesn't have a future. And so I'll just beg that you think about that tonight as you consider the proposal that's ahead of you. Again, we feel like it's ready to go across the finish line. I love the idea of having a 5-year review requirement. That is not in that. So I really do appreciate that thinking tonight. You know, as far as the idea of this is not just singularly for Destin High School's use. This is to be a city field, but Destin High School is excited to come and partner with the city with a long-term use agreement, obviously, to put the funds in to flip that into a baseball field. And so, you know, we brought out the whole team tonight. We're excited to have everyone here. We've got about 600 kids at the school this year. We have over 70 employees at the school. Lots of good things happening over there. 80% of our kids at the school have Destin addresses. And so I think that we do represent a large majority of the city when we come and we ask for things or ask for how we can partner. Monetarily, obviously, this may impact on some of the fees that you collect. It may not. We've talked about this again, but we're also looking at opportunities that it may provide to the city, even from a tourism perspective. We may have the opportunity for people to come in and play different types of games here in Destin. So again, we're very thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight and thankful for your consideration of the proposal. I'd like to introduce Dr. Diane Kelly. She's our new school principal, and she's got a few words also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's already on. Name and address, and it's all you.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes. Most of you know me. I've had the privilege of working with young people in Okaloosa County schools for quite some time. I won't say exactly how many years, but I think your mayor knows, and I think at least one other of your council members know how long I've worked with the youth in our Okaloosa County. But specific to Destin, I really wanted to make 2 points. And one is that I'm so excited to see the city of Destin support the young people of Destin, because we all have one major goal in mind, and that is to represent the name of Destin to the highest level of excellence that is possible. And I think you see that level of excellence right here among you tonight. And I will tell you, most of you know, this is my 4th school to be principal of, and I can tell you there are no better young people here than you see here with us tonight. So thank you for that one goal, that we want the name Destin to represent us to the highest level of excellence. And the second thing, pertinent to baseball specifically, you know, like I do, that baseball specifically is more than a sport. Baseball represents all of those things, all of those skills that it takes for our young people to take into adulthood. Specifically, things like resilience, things like experience, things like teamwork, and the opportunity to be seen and valued as an athlete, perhaps even for scholarships. So all of these things wrapped together really represent opportunity and the advancement for growth for these young people. And as already been said by some of my colleagues, the opportunities to see and be seen and to represent you to the best of their ability. So particularly for baseball, I'm very grateful for you for recognizing that it's important for these young people and for their equitable opportunities for success. Thank you so much for your consideration tonight.
And before you go, name and address.
Yes, Diane Kelly, 11 Kristen Circle, Niceville, Florida.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Sharky, you up? All right. All right, public comments, continuing on. Anyone else other than? All right, seeing none other, I will close public comments and we will move into the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve as is.
All right, with a second?
I'll second.
Second, Councilman Guile. All right, we're just gonna run a little.
Yeah, we've got it now.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, great. Everyone running? Yeah. All right, I'm just out without a computer, so call the vote, and Ray will let me know what is.
I'll let you look on mine.
No, you're good. right, ayes have it unanimously, so moved, 7-0. Go ahead.
Would it be the council's pleasure to bring the item up for the high school since they're here en masse and go ahead and deal with that before we get into the other items so they don't have to sit through some of that?
I can make that motion to make it official, move it forward so it's the first item.
All right, so,
I'll second it.
all right, we're gonna get a little loose with Robert's rules, and we're gonna go ahead with it. All right. Yeah, we just approved, we're making a substitute motion on the approval of the agenda. All right, so any discussions on that? Seeing none, we are doing a substitute motion on the agenda to allow for 4D to be moved up after the consent.
Mayor, could
Yes,
you do
sir.
a recall on that one, please?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Could you do a recall on that one, please?
We need a verbal recall? Okay.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Larry. All right, so we have the consent agenda. We had that approved. So now we're going to go to 4D, the Destin High School baseball field. City Manager, if you want to take that away. And then just hit that button.
Here we go. Destin High School baseball field. As you're aware, we have worked with Mr. Williams and those others at the Destin High School on an agreement for them to use the Dolphin Field at the Morgan Sports Center for their home games and their practices. We think we have put together a good agreement, and I hope that they will concur that we're all in accord that that it meets the needs of the high school, it meets the needs of the cities, and allows us to use it, allows the high school to use it exclusively during their season, and the city to use it during the off-season. So we think that's reflected in the agreement, and we would recommend your approval based on the conversations we've had and the good work we've had with the high school representatives.
All right. And with that, is there any discussions, or do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the baseball field agreement for Field D at Morgan Sports Center.
All right, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, with a motion and a second, any further discussions?
I wanted to just,
Jump in.
is the 5-year review part of this?
No, ma'am.
Currently, unless.
Can we make that as a substitute motion to add in that it'd be a 5-year review based on just looking it over every 5 years? Because we may want to make it easier for them, but every 5 years adding as a review.
I'll second that.
Councilman King, are you okay
Yeah,
with
I'll add
that?
that to the motion.
All right, and a second,
And
you're
I'll
okay with
let the
that?
second.
All
Thank you,
right, so we had
John.
an amendment to that. All right, any further discussion? Go on in.
Yeah. Kim, I may have missed it, but I didn't, first, thank y'all for everybody that worked on this. I don't know who all it was, but I think I know who it was. But I didn't see a termination. So basically what this locks the school in is for 15 years, they're going to pay us $10,000 plus 3% or whatever every year for 15 years. There should be, where is the severability where they can say, hey, somebody donated us 5 acres of land and we built our own ballpark or whatever.
I think you all just added it with the 5-year review. So
No,
every
that's-
5 years. If you want beyond that, we can put in a termination for convenience, but the issue was that the school intended to put in the capital improvements that they did, and so they wanted to be assured use of it for a while. At the end of the term, the city will keep any improvements on the property.
No,
They
I
won't
saw
go-
that,
Okay, so-
but they should have, since they're paying, you know, if somebody donates them $1 million or 10 acres of land, they should have the ability whenever, not to wait on a 5-year review or wait on the 10-year review or whatever. There should be,
If parties voluntarily agree, we could always do that. There's a provision for amendments where the parties can agree to any amendments, including termination. However, if council wants to have unilateral termination, I'm happy to add that in.
yeah, I would just, as long as we're changing it, I would say they ought to have the ability with 60 days notice or whatever the standard verbiage is, to cancel their end of the contract. They may get a better deal somewhere, land, money, whatever.
All right, anyone else with discussion? Yes.
And I'm glad to step into the breach to help the high school with their baseball program. I had one caveat, though, that concerned me. As most of you know, we have Little League tournaments in the summer or during the spring in which we attract hundreds, if not thousands, of people here to play. And so I asked Ms. Firth, is this going to impact our ability to have those Little League tournaments? She believes that if we make a slight modification on the way we're going to change the fields, that we can still go ahead. Otherwise, we're losing 20% of our fields that we use for the Little League tournaments. And so, if Lisa, would you explain the slight difference that you were telling me about, how we can do both?
Yes. So we did talk on this, and the infield at the softball field, that Field D, will be putting grass in the infield, of course, to make it a baseball field. And if we could just keep that grass a little shy into the baseline, so that we can move the 90-foot bases that the high school needs to an 80-foot base when we need them for the tournaments. And otherwise, if we go as far, yeah, so if we go as far up with the 90 and the grass goes, you know, as just to make the 90 baseline, then when we bring the 80-foot bases in, then they will be running on the baseline. But we did speak about that, so we hope that it's not in here, but I think we can make that work.
If we have agreement that the school thinks that that's something that will not severely impact what they're doing, then we have a deal.
Mm-hmm. We're definitely bringing the outfield will be arced 20 to 30 feet, you know, going further out, but the infield is what we're talking about. Right.
And
Can I ask you a question, Councilmember Destin? What months does that occur? Because right now the agreement provides that the Destin High School does not use Field D at all during the summer,
And Lisa is aware of what the time frame is, and I think it coincides with this. All we needed to do is make sure we don't fix the field where it can't be used, because we're losing 20% of our ability to sponsor a tournament.
Right, and so if we do what I just said, we'll be okay. And the high school does know that during those, in the summer months, if they need a place, it won't be on that field because of the tournaments that are already on the field.
All right.
would need a modification to the site, to the plans that are attached?
No, I mean, it won't be that much.
No, it would just be the grass would be a little bit shorter in
Yeah.
that diagram is all it would be.
I think we're good with that.
Probably just 10 feet.
Anyone from the school want to speak on this, or I kind of getting a couple head nods, yes, but,
I got the thumbs up from
okay.
Juan.
Okay, yeah. There we go, head coached.
Mayor, Councilman, thank you for having us. No, it's not going to be any impact. All it's just saying the grass is shorter and there's more dirt to deal with. That's pretty much all it is. It's not going to impact anything as far as gameplay goes.
Great, yep, as long as you guys are good with that.
Yes,
Okay,
we're good
great.
with it.
All right.
Okay,
Anything
City
else?
Attorney, can that go into the agreement? I mean, we've got a verbal agreement here. Is that going to be binding on the two parties?
I will talk with the school about how to articulate that. I don't know what we just changed as far as the height of the grass and the amount of dirt, but we will. And then I asked Lisa if we needed to amend the plans, and she said no. So we will figure out a way, but it sounds like we all have the same intent, so should be fixable.
That sounds good. That's
Yeah.
where we need to go, and then everybody can accomplish what they
You
need.
got it.
I had one other comment. I don't look at this as a permanent solution. A permanent solution would be a new, nice field somewhere. What we've done is we've taken one softball field out and replaced it with a baseball field, which is all right in the short term. I'll plan to make another motion when we're through with this to direct the city manager and the city attorney to approach the superintendent of schools. The school district bought as we all are aware, a nice chunk of property from the Catholic Church, and we have the ability and have shown in the past that we spent 30 years with the track and all of the recreational facilities we put on the school board property, that they cooperated with us to put on there since we paid for the facilities and they provided the land. I would like to see if we can't go forward to have a real field for these folks with all of the things that come with a real field. Now, it would be a field available to everybody in Destin, but would also be their real home field with the kind of facilities that they deserve. And I would be more than willing to have the city pitch in, because we need more fields. We don't need to close one type of field down to make accommodations to another. So I'll make that motion when we get through here to send the folks to talk to the school district.
Awesome. All right. Kevin, then Jim. Councilor Schmidt, you got anything? I thought that was from the first one. I don't have the ability to knock them off the list. All right, you're good?
You don't have a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we're talking about how we can help them and they can help us, from my understanding, we're putting 40-foot poles in the outfield to allow it to be a high school something, so they can hit balls a certain height or distance, and allows it to, your field's not long enough, so you have to go higher, something like that, I believe is the case. Yeah, right. So I think at Morgan's we already have a field that has half of the outfield that height. So Lisa, can you tell us why we don't want to use that field that's already there?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a mutual agreement with the high school and the city. Okay. The one thing about that field, you have the track, which is higher than that. Is it a 20-foot field? Fence?
Outfield fence?
Yeah.
No,
A little
it's
more.
higher than that.
Yeah. So it's, the track is higher than that. We also have the swimming pool splash pad of that motel. I mean, they're gonna hit home runs. And we all kind of looked at the four different fields. And then you also have you have the pavilion and the children's park. So that whole outfield is pretty vulnerable to children, where the D outfield, we have a huge stormwater pond, no big deal. And then on the, a little bit of the soccer. So, and also I think the sun, right? You kind of like where coach kind of liked where the sun was gonna be in a.
Are there kids playing behind right field on field D, like on a volleyball court and soccer fields?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Now, what
Just
about
on
on
the
the
right.
first base and third base line? What I see this image here has steel poles going in. What's the purpose of that?
Oh, safety.
Safety.
Yes. You have the walking trail, and you have the batting cage.
Is that the new batting cage that we're going to be
Yes, sir.
building?
Yes, sir.
Won't that be covered with a roof?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think on the
Third base line?
third base line you could get away without safety netting? I
Yeah.
didn't know.
I
what you
mean,
thought.
I don't know.
I mean, if we had to,
Yeah.
ideally, I mean, there's people all over the park at night. I mean, if we absolutely had to, it's a discussion, but we'd have to move it. Like, if we had a program on field C that night, and it was little kids soccer or whatever, we'd probably move then.
Okay. And just for curiosity, a foul ball going over behind the backstop, whether it's a high schooler or a 12-year-old, is still a foul ball going over behind the backstop?
Backstop, yeah.
Okay. And we've never had safety nets installed in 20 years at Morgan's Sports Complex?
That is correct. We're hoping to.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm so glad and thank the Parks and Rec and Tori, Mr. Guile for working on this agreement with the high school. It'll be exciting to see Destin High School be able to play there. I think that's really, really good, and hopefully that works out for you guys tonight, so y'all can be playing baseball there. So.
All right. Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, I just want to bring it back to what we're actually voting on. So we're voting on what's before us, plus a 5-year review, and we're going to leave the severability out of it, and we're going to leave, what was,
The 80 to 90 conversion, the grass.
right.
Yeah.
We're
that's
going to
what-
add that or leave that out?
It seems like we're just neutrally going to move forward and they're going to hammer
Yeah,
it
because
out.
what I think then what we need to do is authorize you to sign that agreement once it's been approved, because I want to see I want somebody to see the words in that agreement, as opposed to, yeah, we think we're agreeing we're going to take 10 feet of grass and they think we're going to take 5 feet of grass or whatever, and who's going to pay for all the, So I would just make a substitute motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with the changes that we've delineated here tonight.
All right, I have a substitute motion.
I'll second that.
All right. Okay. You got anything else, Councilman Destin? I just don't have the ability to take off the discussion list, so anyone else have further discussions? All right, Councilman King?
Thank you, sir. And thank you all for being here. Thanks for everybody who presented and just your resiliency and your relentlessness to get this field. There was no high school in Destin when I was growing up here, so I went to a school in Fort Walton, and I didn't play football, or I didn't play baseball all through high school, but I did play football, and we had to drive to a nasty high school across town to play football games. It was gross. Ooh. We had to ride in a school bus across town to play at our rival high school, and it was great, but it was awful. There was green everywhere. It was foul. So anyway, so I share the sentiment with you guys and girls, and I understand the feeling of not having a home. We played homecoming a couple times where Steve Riggs Stadium is now at Fort Walton, but there was no stadium. There wasn't enough room for all our fans. It just wasn't ideal, and so this hits home with me. I know the feeling, and I think that you guys deserve a really nice place to call home. I will be supporting the motion, ever how we draw it up. And I would love, I think one of the first meetings we had about this, I can remember talking about, if I were driving by there, and we all drive by there, I drive by there multiple times a day. If I'm driving by there and I see that it's second inning, and I don't have anywhere necessarily to be, I'll bring my family down there to watch you guys. I wouldn't, whereas I may not make the walk going down Kelly Street all the way down there to the field where you guys have been playing. And so I think it's great. Like I said, how y'all want to draw it up to make sure this is solidified, I'll be supporting this tonight. So thanks, and best of luck.
Thank you, Councilman King. Councilwoman Aber?
I just want to tell you guys, thank you for coming out tonight. I know you've had a long day. I think you can tell by the response up here. We care about y'all. We want you to be Destin. We are happy you're in Destin. And hopefully we can fix this annexation and get a lot more of you in those private neighborhoods into Destin. So thank you for being here.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second of the substitute. Add in the 5-year modification, and I get the privilege, thank you, of signing it off. All right, we'll call the vote. All right, ayes have it, unanimously so moved. And before we move on, thank you, Councilman Guile, for leading the charge for us. I really appreciate you adding even more time to the volunteerism. So thank you so much for representing us in that negotiation, as well as the staff and everyone. So everyone around, thank you guys so much. And with that, congratulations. Yeah. All right, so.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that I referred to earlier.
Please, I can't wait for this one.
I'll move that we authorize the city manager, city attorney to approach the school district to see about leasing, buying, renting, whatever they want to propose, enough property on the property next to the school that they've bought, so that we can build a baseball field.
I'll second that.
All right, we got us first and a second. Any further discussions? Yes, Councilman Gao.
I'm not against it. I just want you to know that we did make that effort. We met with the school board and their officials. So it was something that we attacked from the very beginning. So it's not something that's going to be new to them. But, I mean, if you want to give it a second shot, I'm all for it.
Button.
You approached as the school, I suppose, will approach as a municipal government that has had ongoing contracts with them for almost 40 years now for the use of fields. So hopefully that'll make a difference.
And I heard we had a Destin up there now batting for us.
Yeah. We need to talk to him.
All right. All right, so we're calling the vote on negotiating with the school on the Beach Drive parcel. Call the vote. Oh, wait for what? There we go. Oh, we mess him up when we come up with motions on the fly. All right, ayes have it, so moved. We have some marching orders. All right, so before we move on, unless you guys want to sit into the municipality of civil government and you guys get some extra credit. If you guys do want to leave, this is probably the best time to do so for the high schoolers.
We'll give you some minutes.
Yeah. All right, hurry up, like real quick though, like, all right, council stand up. All right, so it's going to be a 10 o'clock meeting now. Okay.
Don't get quiet. Just do your thing.
All right, guys, we're going to keep going on. So if you are still exiting, please just do so quietly. And hopefully we can get that much of a happy consensus on the rest of these agenda items. Yeah, all right. All right, they're going to leave the happiness, and now we're really going to get down to civil government. All right. Larry, take it away, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is item 4A under the city manager, which is a recap of the debt issuance that we've been working on. Ms. Crystal has some details that she's going to share with you, but in a nutshell, we went out for 2 solicitations, one for a RFP for bank loans and one for an RFQ for the public offering on the bond market. We had responses from both of those. Ms. Crystal will give you a synopsis of how those came in and the recommended action that the staff would recommend that we move forward with one or the other, but certainly at council's discretion to take the path that you would like us to go down, but there are some options, and I'll defer to Ms. Crystal to cover those options more thoroughly, because you would be really confused if I tried to cover them with you.
All right, fair enough. All right. Ms. Strickland.
Good evening, Council, Mayor and council members. So this evening, what you have before you is the results from the request for qualifications for investment bankers and invitation to bid from the local banks. As you can see from the results in the packet, Trustmark came in first place if you're looking to go the bank loan route. They had firm prices instead of indicative prices. The firm prices that they proposed were lower than those proposed by the other firms. They also offered to give us no prepayment penalties, whereas the others were make whole. The next part of the analysis, I compared the 3 Trustmark options against a potential 20-year public offering. The 5-year with over, let's see, it's amortized over 15 years, but it's a 5-year term with Trustmark, has a lower impact on the general fund than the other 2 proposals. The 20-year public offering has even less of an impact on our general fund and our general operations if we're to go that route. If you look forward into their other proposed options, the city general fund would have to come up with between $400,000 to $970,000 to make the debt service on one of the other terms proposed by Trustmark, which I feel would be a very significant impact on general operations of the city, and I could not recommend those. We also have online John Ford with Ford & Associates to help us answer any further questions, and I'd like to hear your comments at this time. Thank you.
All right. All right, so I am running blank. Does anyone have comments to start off? Discussion or motion? Yes. No, does anyone want to bring up a motion? Or, okay.
I move to negotiate a loan with Trustmark Bank with a term of 5 years and an amortization of 15 years at the proposed firm price of 3.48%. First reading of the debt ordinance shall be scheduled for October 21st, 2024.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Further discussions on the Trustmark Bank loan. Jump on it. Oh, okay. Oh, we got our screen back up. All right, Councilman Destin.
I was wondering what the interest savings would be over the term of the loan as opposed to the bond issue.
3.3 million.
I mean, officially from our financer.
Well, we could estimate that right now at about $3 million. The public market, this number is indicative. You don't know until you actually go out to market. Second of all, with the Trustmark loan and that balloon payment in year 5, you don't know what interest rate you're going to get when you refinance at or before year 5. So, but from the numbers that we have here, it looks like approximately $3 million.
So about a $3 million savings if we can make the payments.
That's correct, but it would be at the risk of other services within our city suffering for not having enough. We'd have to take money from our other general programs in order to afford that level of debt service.
Now, in all fairness, the 3% reduction that we indicated at our budget hearing would generate $600,000?
That's correct.
And this would cover that payment, wouldn't it? This additional, so there's not, other than the 3% reduction we voted on, there's not a great deal of impact on the general if we are able to maintain that, in addition to the fact that we have a number of proposals to increase both fees, recreational building. We've got our proposals to do our new impact for traffic. Those all will be generating money, correct? some of which can be used, some of which cannot. I understand that part.
That's right. So if we're to choose, for example, the Trustmark 10-year loan, amortized over 10 years, the general fund would have to, let's see, year one, that's $976,000. Year two, it's about $817,000. So no, that 3% decrease would not cover that full debt service.
How much would it cover?
About 600,000 of it if we could
So
maintain
that's
it.
two-thirds,
But don't
basically?
forget,
Would
yeah,
that be two-thirds?
that's true.
Okay, and so we have 300,000 to make up. And the point I'm making, Crystal, these are policy decisions that we can make and will make, and it's our job to make, to not have a $3 million savings in interest, in my opinion, is a much more traumatic effect on general fund than those aspects. Now, that's
No,
a
sir,
policy statement, and I would remind you, that's what we do.
Right, but the funds that I'm committing are not general funds. The funds that are not general funds are coming in over a 20-year period. They're not coming over a shorter duration. And that's why you're resulting in this impact on the general fund, which you would not have
Okay,
otherwise.
the monies that I'm talking about, the 3% reduction, where does that money come from?
Most of those are from the general fund.
Okay, so that does come from the general fund, doesn't it? And we can find another 200,000 or 300,000. That's what we do. We set policies and reduce the overall cost to the city by $3 million. It's really a no-brainer, and that's why I seconded the motion.
All right, Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, so the reason I made the motion was in part because of the $3.3 million difference. And what I hope everybody up here understands, I'm kind of sure you do, but maybe not everybody in the room understands, is when you go out beyond the 15-year point and you spend the extra $3 million, this is to finance what we have. Okay, we bought Harbor One parcel. We're taking out money now to cover that. The Crosstown Connector, we're taking out money to do that. And phase one of the undergrounding of the utilities along Harbor Boulevard. We've already made those decisions, and all we're doing is saying this is how we're going to pay for it. The problem is this puts us close to the max that we can go in debt and still cash flow. I mean, we can go in debt if somebody will give us a loan, and still cash flow because we still do have some ability to downgrade the other services that we provide or raise the fees that we collect because there's no money in here to do anything with Harbor One other than get the sand. So all these great ideas, of moving, making this, I think the community center, no, the city hall and putting the community center across the street and doing this big project on Harbor One where we do all, you need to temper your expectations of what we can do, what we can afford to do. And so I would prefer to pay this off in 15 years. And you're right, we run some risk that in 5 years when we go back to market, nobody in this country knows what the interest rates will be like. They could be lower, but they might not. They could be higher. But we will have revenues coming in, once the mayor gets all those properties annexed in, and we will have other revenues coming in that we could use to do some of the going forward stuff. So I like the fact that we're going to pay it off in 15 years. I think we can pay it off, as opposed to, and I understand, Crystal, your point, if we go the bond route on the recommended motion, we're only paying $50,000 or less per year sucking it out of the general fund, but we need to temper our expectations of what we can do financially. And so the alternate motion, the one that I made, gets us through this as quickly as possible in a means that we can pay for it, that I believe we can pay for it, and obviously I think Mr. Destin believes we can pay for it, and that's what we need to do. So that's the only thing that, I understand the staff's recommended motion. And if I were in your shoes, I'd probably do the same thing because that gives me the greatest flexibility with the general fund is to go the bond route. But saving $3.3 million and 5 years seems like the best choice from my perspective. Thank you.
Councilman Guile.
Crystal, approximately how much per year do you think we'd have to cut into the general fund to pay for the Trustmark route?
So this one, it's 241,000 year one, so it ranges, it goes down to about 100,000 by year 5. And please keep in mind, at or before year 5, we will have to refinance. Looks like that's about $18 million that we would be refinancing at year 5.
All right. And we discussed something where you said it's a 5% deduct, or a 5% cut into a general fund at some point. Can you explain that a little bit? I don't think I quite understood that when we were talking about it earlier.
So if we went the 20-year public offering route, that would take about $50,000 a year out of the general fund in the first 5 years, which is much lower and more affordable. $241,000, that would equate to approximately 1.5% decrease in our overall general fund budget for operations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep. Jump back in. Yep.
Yeah, the other reason that I like this is we have the ability to pay early. So if we come into revenue or a revenue stream that we had not identified, with the bank loan, we can go ahead and pay it off early, as opposed to the bond. When they say the make whole provision, what that means is we would pay them the $35 million to make them whole because that's what they expected. So
no, sir, if I may, small
I thought you
correction
said
there.
the bond issue had a make whole and the loan didn't.
No, all of the other bids from the banks all have make whole provisions.
Right.
A bond in the public market, they tend to have a redemption clause at the 10-year mark, so you can pay off at the 10th year, usually with no prepayment penalties, but sometimes that's something you have to negotiate at the
Okay, so we
pricing.
don't know on the bond, we just know on the bank loan.
That's correct.
Okay.
But you could also, if you wanted to have the option to prepay at year 5 or earlier, you can pay for that option.
Yeah, my experience is when you do that, they just raise just a little bit, just raise the interest rate just a little bit, just in the case that you actually get to pay it off, but they still get their money. That's what they're in the business for, and I appreciate that. So
Yes, sir, I have a master's in it. I understand it very well. Thank you.
yeah.
Slam. I appreciate that. That was a nice slam. All right, anyone else? Yes, Councilman Destin.
Crystal did provide the difference in what it costs to do the bond as opposed to a bank loan. I think the bond cost, and we are guessing, but it's pretty accurate, it costs $350,000 to do the bond issue, and to do the loan is $150 more or less. So you're talking about $200,000 more to do the bond issue. And as we go forward to the 5-year mark, you know, we've just gotten to the highest interest rates we've been in a very, very long time. I expect we'll be trending down, but in any event, we will refinance at the interest rate, whatever it is. So at this point, the bond was actually, what was it, 3.6 versus the loan was 3.48. So the bond is actually higher now than the bank loan. So all in all, I think at least at this time we should go that route. And I don't know that there's any prohibition of us later on doing a bond issue if it becomes financially smart to do that.
So I will rightfully admit that this is my first time going through this process. So in 5 years, do we have to, when we re-up this, is that $150,000 owed again?
Yes, it's $160,000, and yes, we would have refinancing costs that would approximate this, or they could be higher by then.
Okay, all right.
Because it's say it would be 100?
Button.
I've refinanced a lot of loans. Does it say specifically that the refinance amount would be 150,000?
No, we don't know what the refinancing amount is until we get there. Most of this cost is on the City of Destin's side. This is our bond counsel and our financial advisors and, well, a lot of legal staff on our side.
Bond counsel and all the things that go along with issuing a bond are very expensive.
Any piece of debt, we need to have all of these opinions from all these different entities, yes.
Yep, jump in, Councilman Gao.
I'm sorry. Something you said just kind of rings in my mind. You said you have a master's in this. Is there a reason you chose the bond versus Trustmark? I mean, you're the one that's the finance, director of finance. You're the one with the master's in finance. What's the main reason you feel the bond is the best for the city?
Again, the primary reason is the impact on general operations and trying not to use ad valorem money and trying to use all of those other funds that are more restricted and that would better fit this purpose. That was the primary reason. The secondary reason is $160,000 times 2 for, this initial loan plus a refinancing pretty much equates to what it would be for a public offering, which would include ratings from 2 different credit ratings, would give the city a credit rating status.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, I will call the vote. All right, 4-3. Ayes have it. We are going with our local Trustmark. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, good discussion there. Appreciate the dialogue and the back and forth. It's always good to have some good debate on those items. Next item is 4B, is the fire district dock and the boat slip lease that has been discussed on more than one occasion. There were a number of questions that was asked at previous meetings, and we believe staff put their best effort in answering those questions and presented it to you in your packet. But I know there are other questions tonight, and we have staff here that will do our best to answer those questions on what we use the boat for, how often we use the boat, the advantages of having a boat slip at this new location, if that would be the council's pleasure. So with that, any questions that you may have, we will do our best to offer some answers in addition to what's in your packets.
All right, does anyone have a motion to present forward?
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the lease as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussions? Councilman Schmidt.
Yeah, I was just hoping that Mr. Troy could tell us why he needs a boat slip over there. I say he, meaning code. Sorry.
Good evening. I was asked to provide some pros and cons, or pros on why I thought the boat slip should be over there. I think that was provided in your packet. I'll go over a few of those. The security of the code vessel is something that we ought to consider. There is expensive equipment on there. I don't believe there's an adequate security system down in the harbor area where the boat is currently at. It can be easily accessed by the public. We've had people throw trash in the boat before. The biggest thing I think is the synergy there would be, because we're often working with the Sheriff's Department, FWC, Destin Fire District, and having our vessel over there at the same time. It'll shorten the trips to Joe's Bayou when we have to use it to investigate. I know there's obviously a lot of activity on the harbor, but I think it offers a happy medium. And again, whatever the council chooses, we'll work with, and yes.
So do you think it's, you said something about the last statement you just said, you think there's more activity for code to do outside of the harbor than the harbor?
I think I said more. I didn't say more. I said there's other activity. We do get a number of calls in Joe's Bayou. I know that's.
What kind of calls have you gotten from Joe's Bayou to use the boat for?
Oh, we haven't been able to take the boat out there. We don't.
Well, based on what you just said, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean,
public's asking me. I'm just trying to
Sure.
respond.
I mean, there are derelict vessels. We just had a complaint about a piece of wood floating in there that was maybe a serious hazard to a jet skier. We had some jet ski issues with the no wake zone. Earlier last summer, we had the commercial business and the slides, I think, were operating out of there. So,
Can the city of Destin enforce anything like that?
yeah. Pardon me?
Can the city of Destin enforce that?
Well, you got that. You got the illegal charters that are reportedly occurring out of there. So
are you chasing them down with the boat, you mean? Or
well, we can't effectuate a traffic stop, but I mean, if somebody's pulled over and stopped, we can pull up next to them and have a conversation.
Okay. And then you talked about the safety of the boat. I mean, I know there's multi-million-dollar boats and vessels in the harbor. I guess they have better cameras than whatever we are using down there then, because they're still there and they're not trying to move. But do you need a lift at the new slip for your boat?
I think a lift is recommended in that area.
Okay. How much is that going to cost, do you think?
I'm not 100% certain.
Gotcha.
We've got a couple of quotes, one from the Destin Fire District for $33,833, and that's, from what I understand, a lift that moves it up and down real fast so they can get out and go fight a fire if they need to. One for the sheriff's office, their quote is about $17,000, so I'm assuming we're somewhere in those range, so $20,000 or so.
Gotcha. And how many code activities have you done in the past 12 months with the boat? How many like citations have we issued to illegal operators, to people that are breaking the law?
I don't know the number of citations issued, but I believe we've estimated about 30 to 40 times that it's been taken out.
Okay. I appreciate you. I mean, me personally, people I've asked and spoken to, taxpayers of Destin, might not be a lot of money, but it just, still have nobody that I've been able to hear from can really explain why the city of Destin needs a co-compliance boat that's hardly ever even used anyways to be put over there. In my experience in talking to boaters and captains, they'd say it's actually harder to park a vessel over in that area. So if we have inexperienced operators on our boat, I would be concerned with that if it's a city asset. Last thing we need is for it to hit the pilings over there. So I can support doing it. I'm all about FWC, Sheriff's Department, that can really respond to law-breaking issues. Like the city of Destin has no jurisdiction at Crab Island, I don't believe. Do we? No. So for me, it's not necessary unless there was a really big need, and I've yet to hear anything. So, but thank you for providing the info. I just can't support it.
Councilman Stevens.
Thank you. Couple questions. I guess this one's gonna be for Lisa. Are there any cameras over at Royal Melvin right now that can actually keep an eye on the vessel?
At this time, no, there are no cameras at Royal Melvin.
Okay. So with the current boat lift that's at that city boat lift, I understand it belongs to the fire department and they're willing to do like a net value, sell it to us, which would probably be a lot cheaper than purchasing the $33,000 boat lift that we'd have to put over at the new boat slip. My guessing is it's probably going to cost in the lower, but maybe $8,000. I don't know what it would cost, but it'd definitely be a lot less just to purchase that one. And I do know that our water that we use, we're hooked up to it. I guess the question is with electricity, are we still paying the fishing fleet for the electricity? I guess, do y'all have any info on that?
If you're asking me, I do not know. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm probably not going to support this just because of, I feel like 90% of the usage is in the harbor. And every so often, you'll probably use it for Joe's. And then something for us to think down in the future, if we ever do build the boat slips at one harbor and we put a harbor master station there, that could be potentially where we could eventually move our code compliance vessel.
All right, number 3, Councilman Bagby.
Okay, I guess we're getting all the nays out of the way. I'm probably not going to support this. Well, I'm not going to support this for both current and future reasons. The current reasons, I would, since we don't have exact numbers, I would say probably 90% of the need is in the harbor and maybe 10%. And some of that need at Joe's Bayou, quite honestly, you could do from the land side. If a outlaw pulls up and starts loading up the big party out there, you just get out of the truck or whatever and walk over and go, sorry, you're not getting on today. The other, in the future, even if we don't put the harbor master at one harbor, but we put the field out somewhere in the harbor, which we've talked about before, we would want the harbor master in the harbor and the boat in the harbor where it should be. And that's our jewel. That harbor, our access to the Gulf, but the harbor is our jewel, not Joe's Bayou. Joe's Bayou is important for recreational and some fishing, but, individual citizen fishing. But I want to keep the boat in the harbor, and part of me wants to say, no, we're not going to pay the extra cost of putting the boat at the fire district station.
Councilman King. Councilman Guile.
For me, I think I would support this only because harbor, other than the cost of property in Destin, the cost of a dock in Destin is outrageous. It's probably the second most expensive thing in this area. And we don't know what we're going to do in the future. And it's the cost, we don't necessarily have to put a boat lift in there if we're just holding it for future use or even just transient use where they just periodically park there and check on something. So for me, I think it just makes more sense to have it, just to plan for the future.
All right, fair point. Councilwoman Hebert.
I'm in agreement with where Mr. Giles going, directing not that we put code in that spot, because I wouldn't want to spend the money to put a lift in, but to pay, what's the cost, city attorney, monthly, to have that as a transient slip or a slip we could use? Is that?
I don't know that we have a hard number, but my understanding was there's no rent on it. It's simply the pro rata share of the utilities, which would be the water and power. And if we don't have a boat lift, I don't know what power we're going to have.
So like $30 a month, worst case scenario, average out?
It's around there. It's essentially a free slip except for our pro rata share of utilities.
And it wouldn't be that, okay, we need to move code over there. We could leave them in the harbor and that could be our slip. And if we needed it as a transient slip, having it as a backup? I mean,
that's not what the agreement currently provides for. The agreement currently does provide for a for usage by code compliance. If the council wants to use it for something else, we can go back to the fire district and make that request.
Yeah, I'm not going to support a code boat. Nope.
And 7, Councilman Destin.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Councilman Giles. We're getting a slip for free. They're worth about $1,200 to $1,500 a month in the harbor. If we want an extra transient slip, we can use the one in the harbor. Supposedly, those 3 are under our control. So to say we don't want a free slip other than the utilities doesn't seem real wise to me.
Yeah, jump in.
Okay, so do we have to use it for code? Because I understand where Mr. Destin, and yeah, it's great to have this slip, but I mean, if we keep this slip, must a code boat be in it?
The one on Calhoun that we're talking about, or the harbor? If we are talking about this lease, it provides that the purpose of this slip is for code compliance. So yes, that's what it would have to be used for as currently written. But if you want us to go back to the fire district and ask for it to be able to be used for whatever we want, including transient public, we can ask.
I'd be more inclined for us to have it not locked in as a code slip, if that's what the agreement's locking us into.
If I might, make sure we're talking the same thing. It may be a code slip, but we're not going to have a code boat in it. We don't have another boat to put in the slip, and I don't think we're going to rent it out to the public. If I'm understanding correctly, that if we used it, it would be for the code boat, but absent us putting the code boat in it, we don't have anything else to put in it. Is that?
That's my understanding, but I don't think the district would care if we were using it for some municipal purpose that was also legitimate. I'm sure they would go along. I know, or I feel they would not want us to put a transient slip there for the public, and nor would we. It would be inappropriate. But we can put a transient slip for the public in one of our 3 slips on the harbor if we want to use that for code or any other purpose. So, you know, I don't think there's a great deal of restriction, and that frees up one more slip on the harbor, the way I look at it.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar in that if someone came to me and said, "Hey, do you want a boat slip on the bay?" Yeah. It's going to cost you, less than $100 a month. I would not turn, for my own intents and purposes, I wouldn't turn that down for any reason, and I can't understand why we would consider turning this down as a city. It's a 1 year. How long is the lease right now? 5 years. 5 years. It's a 5-year lease. We've never had the ability to put a boat over there. How do you know that we won't need it? I mean, we're going to just turn down real estate like that. It makes zero sense to me. I understand all the concerns, and I get it. But it seems crazy to me, and I feel like if after a year, I mean, we're not using it, I don't think I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't see any reason in the world why we would turn down real estate like this. And $1,200 to $1,500 is very conservative.
Just to correct myself, it's a 3-year lease. But if the council wants, I can request that we change it to any municipal purposes if that, it would be including but not limited to code compliance if that helps you.
I agree with Johnny. I mean, it's great to have free real estate. I mean, I wouldn't want to turn it down because it's not going to cost a lot, but I don't want to be locked in that we have to put a code boat there. That's what I'm trying to make sure, that we're not locking ourselves into it being a code compliance boat.
That wasn't my understanding at all. I don't think they're going to hold us to keeping a code boat there 25 out of 30 days a month. I think that it's, if we need it there for some reason for 2 weeks out of the month, I don't think there's any stipulation that opposes, that doesn't allow for that.
Right. Councilman Schmidt?
Yeah, just a couple follow-ups there, Mr. King. I mean, one, do we need it? I mean, that's why I was asking. And
maybe
don't have very much clarity from our director or what.
How do you know that we don't need it?
He doesn't have answers that we need it. So that's what I'm taking from that. But then also, Mr. Destin, we're going to free up a transient slip in the harbor. So are you going to buy a second boat? Or how are you going to monitor the activity in the harbor if there's no longer a harbor boat there?
We have 3 slips there, right? We have 1 code boat. If we want to say one of those slips is transient, which they may be used now, we certainly can do that.
Well, I'm saying if we move it, you said we would free up an additional transient slip, which would be very nice, but then how are we going to enforce things on the harbor with the boat?
I'm just saying we would have the option to have an extra one if we wanted to move it. I'm not saying we even want to move it, but as we said earlier, to turn down a free boat slip doesn't seem real wise.
And then citizens, we pay taxes to the fire district, right? Yeah. Destin? And we pay taxes to the city of Destin. Yes. So I mean, in theory, we're paying for it because, well, taxes from the city of citizens of Destin paid into the fire districts, and then they paid for the dock and the building and the property. So,
in addition to what the
city of Destin also collects taxes from the citizens too. I mean, the only other thing I would say though is, do we have it in the budget to buy an additional boat, Crystal?
Not after that debt issuance.
And then do we have it in the budget to buy a lift? I think the answers are no to both of those questions. So, sure, we get this magical, awesome slip that now we have to put a lift in it and pay for that, which we don't have any money. We've been talking about our budget process is really jacked up, but it's free real estate, so let's just go ahead and get it. I mean, we don't need it. Don't need it to me and to people I've been talking to. So
I suppose since we're paying taxes, as you point out, then it's really our slip anyway, and it would be foolish for us to buy something and not use it.
we should just take it.
All right, I'm sure we're all moving each other's opinions left and right, and we're on the button here. Is there
Well-
anything else for the better of the order before we call
Yeah,
the vote?
I do.
All right, jump in,
We
Councilman
got to learn
Bagley.
how to clear those numbers. but
I don't have the ability to.
Yeah. So I think, because I'm a little confused, I think where Kevin is, I don't think anybody wants a code boat there. That's what I think I heard a majority up here say, they don't want the code boat there. And I understand the free real estate, because if somebody's willing to give me free real estate, I'm willing to take it in this town. Although then we'd have to disclose it on our public disclosure form. So I don't want your free real estate. But the question I don't understand is for what? So we're going to say we don't want to give up the slip that they have offered. Okay? So you either want the city manager and city attorney to go back and renegotiate the agreement that is before us to say we can use that for a civic purpose because the agreement before us does not say that. So if you want them to go back and renegotiate this agreement and bring that agreement back to us, then we need to make a substitute motion. Or if you say, we'll try it for, a year, and if we don't ever use it, well, if you tell me I have to use it within a year, I can use it 10 times within a year. I can go out once a month on my way to Joe's Bayou, and then I can come back and park there and, eat down on the harbor or down the street there, and then I can bring it back into the harbor. What are we doing with this? Because the agreement before us is pretty clear what we're using that slip for. And that's not what y'all are talking about. So I would say either, from my perspective, I'm going to vote it down, or I'm going to vote to bring back a different agreement from the fire district.
That we have the city attorney go back and say any municipal purpose.
Second. All right, Councilman Destin with the substitute motion for any municipal purpose with a second. Further discussion?
Yeah, just one thing. And when you bring it back, we'll have a couple weeks here before we engage this again. I want to know what that civic purpose is, because we have one boat. Okay, one boat. So if we're going to buy a boat and put it there and put one down in the harbor, or are we going to, let council members use a jet ski and park the jet ski to go check the fire department or whatever? I just want to know, I get the free, it's a boat slip and it's ours, but if we're not going to use it, and they may have a better use for us or for that slip than us not using it for 5 years.
All right, I'm going to call the vote for the substitute motion. All right, ayes have it, 5-2. So moved. All right. Larry.
I won't either, probably.
Well,
Just to have. We don't need it.
yeah, 4C.
Thank you. I think next item is the Clement Taylor Park renovations contract selection. As you know, we went out for bids for that project. We received 6 submittals. Of those 6, the bid committee found 2 non-responsive. Those 2 simply did not provide all the information that was required and requested in the requesting documents. So of those 4 that were deemed responsive, The proposal from Empire Contractors was ranked the highest and the most responsive of the bids. It was not the least expensive of the bids, but we felt it was competitive, and based on the history of their experience locally, primarily with the county and a couple of recent projects there that they brought in time and on budget, that we felt that this would be the most appropriate means to move forward. As I believe someone said today, that we did not want this to be Captain Royal Melvin Part 2. So the idea is to get a contractor that can move this thing timely and move it according to budget. So it would be staff's recommendation that you approve their recommendation, which would allow us to move the process to the U.S. Treasury, who has to approve our procurement process and the contractor prior to us entering into negotiations for a contract, because they are funding about half of the project. So your approval would allow us to move it to the next phase, and that process would move forward.
You have three options. Which one
Yeah,
are you?
that would be option one. Option two would be if you wanted to score them yourself or to have them come make presentations. So option one is the recommended option.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to accept option one, that the City Council adopt the scoring of the bid committee and direct city staff to negotiate towards a contract with the proposed ranked highest by the bid committee after the selection process has been reviewed and approved by the county and the U.S. Treasury.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Do I see any further discussions other than finally? All right, calling the vote. All righty, we are one step closer. Ayes have it unanimously. All right, Larry, keep it trucking.
A few announcements. I think that was our last item. You got an email earlier, maybe last week, from Dr. Young regarding PIO services that were needed up in the disaster area of North Carolina. We have begun looking at that. We've not made any decision other than we're going to wait and see what Hurricane Milton does to the state of Florida, that if we decide to deploy resources, we think we'd be better served keeping those folks at home. Well, I can tell you that we do have Ray and Crystal each have family down in that area, so it would hit home to a lot of our folks. So before we decide to do anything up north, we're going to look, closer to home. There's been discussion recently at council regarding the committees that we have. We began having some internal discussions with staff, but we think at this time the best option to offer is that Ray will be sending out notices to the 5 council member appointments to each of those committees that on December the 2nd, those appointments will have to be remade. So we're going to ask those committee members to resubmit applications for consideration. We're going to ask you, if you know others that you would like to get in that process, to encourage them to apply. And Dr. Young will get it in our social media and other notices that we're looking for volunteers. We need folks to fill these slots in order to make these committees effective and make them official and bring value to what they offer to the council. So we'll be working through that process, and as we go forward with it, we'll look for opportunities to create the most value for them to make sure that they are providing valuable service to you and the citizens. The employee satisfaction survey, we're working through that from a what it looks like, what we're trying to capture from it, and then we're looking for that third-party vendor that would administer that and to capture the data and quantify it and bring it back to us in a meaningful way that our staff remains anonymous, that they have some assurance that we're not going to see who sent what, but we will capture good data and information to move forward. There was some discussion at the last meeting, or I think it was at the last meeting, regarding the ball field lights. recommendation from staff regarding piggybacking on a contract. I've had some discussion with some of you regarding that process, and we're going to work on amending it some that, as opposed to bringing a recommendation that we either piggyback or go on a state contract, which are allowed in our purchasing policy, but to allow you to make that decision, to say option A may be that we could buy, in this instance, there's an option of purchasing these lights with a piggyback, but if the council prefer, we'll go out and bids, and then you make that decision as us bringing you a recommendation that we go with a state contract or a piggyback, and we think that'd be a little cleaner and make sure that you're involved in those processes prior to getting a recommendation before you. And quite frankly, in that instance, if you decide to go out for an RFP and we find out that the state contract price was a good price, we can certainly go back and purchase it from that. It'll be a timeliness matter would be the only thing. It'd take a little longer to go through the process, but that's quite fine too. Next week is a holiday for Monday, and it wasn't, as much as I like to say, an executive order from the city manager's office, but you approved that some time back, so your staff appreciates that. And that's all we have, Mr. Mayor.
I have a quick question in relation to the lights. With that process, are we looking at you creating information to bring back to us at the next meeting, so this is not going to drag on? Because I know we need to get this done sooner rather than later.
We will have an RFP for your approval, or for your consideration and approval at the next meeting. Yes, ma'am. And we would have had it this meeting, but we got wrapped up in some storm stuff over the last couple of weeks, so we got hung up. So but that's the plan.
All right, and then Dr. T?
Yep, got a couple more for you. Early voting for the general election will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. from October 21st through November 2nd at the Community Center. And please note that does include a Sunday, so that is accurate. So 7 a.m., 7 p.m. from October 21st through November 2nd. As we've talked about before, the city, and in particular a mayoral push, is encouraging people to participate in the Fire Watch training, and that whole Fire Watch initiative is about preventing suicide amongst our community veterans. And we are hosting an in-person training on Thursday, October 17th at 6 p.m. at the library. We're asking people to sign up ahead of time, and we will have the Fire Watch experts coming in to do that training. So if anyone would like to do that and sign up, you can contact the city's public information office and they'll help you with that link. And finally, the city's annual open house will be Wednesday, October 23rd from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. That will be held at the community center, and we'll have a fish fry and live entertainment. And as a reminder to those in attendance here tonight and listening, that is free to everyone, and it's all about community camaraderie and coming out and learning about what the city departments and our various nonprofit partners have been doing this past year. Thank you.
All right. All right, moving along. 5A. Kim.
Can we take a slight break?
Oh, yeah. Ray, you need something?
Jesus.
Yep. I appreciate you looking out for Ray. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, where's my quorum? Reconvene this meeting. Kim, take it away.
Okay, this is ordinance 2409LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, relating to sign requirements for prohibited off-premises signs, providing for amendments to the Land Development Code relating to billboards and digital billboards, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for the amendment of the Land Development Code, Article 16, signs, amending Section 160300, prohibited signs, providing for criteria for council approval of an agreement allowing for such off-premises signs pursuant to specified criteria, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. This is first reading.
And with this being a public hearing, at this time, I will accept public comments on this topic specifically. Do I have anyone from the audience that would like to speak? Yes.
Sandy Trammell, 3823 Indian Trail. Since I was sitting up there on that dais when we decided on the prohibition of the billboards in Destin, and I voted to prohibit them, I'm going to ask you to pick motion number 3 to deny the ordinance. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Name and address, and the floor is yours. Just hit that gray button.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Trey Goodwin. I'm an attorney. My address is 5 Clifford Drive, Shalimar, Florida, and I am here on behalf of Tier 1 Media regarding this matter. And you know, I want to start out by being clear. And Mayor, do I have 3 minutes or?
I know, okay. 3 for this.
So I'll go as quick as I can. Tier 1 is in the billboard business. Let me be clear about that. And we're here because Tier 1 does have an economic interest in what you do. However, I believe that the reasons that would be compelling not to move forward, and that's what we're asking you not to move forward with this ordinance, are unrelated to what's good or bad for Tier 1, but instead related to what is good or bad for your residents and your image to your visitors. And I think that's the decision you have to make from a policy perspective. A couple things I want to point out that I think are important. One, you've got a long-standing ordinance that is going to kill billboards eventually in Destin. They will die a natural death eventually. And that's been in place since 2003. So you've got a long-term plan that's well underway. This would be a major sidetrack from what you're doing currently, because you would provide the opportunity for certain billboards to basically get new life and have the ability to have a useful life long after we're all gone. I've got some data which I'll share with you and let you look over this, but based on what we've observed from the presentations previously about this, there's this idea that you will take certain billboards down and then then allow others to convert to digital. The problem with that is that you effectively increase the total number of ad concentration in the city of Destin by like 94%. You go from roughly 96 total ads to, if you allow these digitals, to maybe upwards of 186 ads. That's a lot of saturation in your market. The data also shows that these digital billboards are 4 times more likely to be observed or seen or distract those in your community. And the other thing I want to point out is that, of the billboards that we understand are being offered that may be taken down, 4 of them may well die pretty soon anyway. The one at the Destin Bridge, you guys own the location. It'll be up to you if you renew it. You can get rid of that one if you want to without making any change to your code. The one at Coyote Ugly is likely to go away through redevelopment anyway, without you taking any action on this ordinance. Thai Smile and Pecan Jacks, they're two small billboards. They're static vinyls. They're off the road and they're obscured by vegetation and other clutter. And so those are not economically viable signs in the long run, and they will probably not be maintained and replaced. So what I would suggest is that, you may get rid of what looks like maybe 5 to 6 signs, 4 of which you might be able to get rid of fairly soon anyway, without making any change. But you would be allowing a significant amount of digital saturation. Now again, my client owns one digital billboard location in the city of Destin. It's 2 faces. We are in the business. However, he did not build that sign in Destin. Destin annexed an existing sign. So I just wanted to point that out. And Mayor, may I approach and
Please,
hand out the
yes.
spreadsheet?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else here from the public who wishes to speak? All right, seeing none. Oh, yep. I figured you guys were more than just the public. I think you guys are part of this.
Do you want me to wait?
I'd want no, without any other publics. Yep, so jump on in. Yep.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott Remington with the Clark Barrington Law Firm in Destin Commons. I live in Pensacola, 4125 Tronjo Road. Grew up in Fort Walton playing in a beautiful football stadium that's green. Very briefly, this is probably the 3rd or 4th time we've been here, so I don't need to belabor a whole lot of this. But what I do want to say is that for at least 2 or 3 years, we've been trying to take down 6 billboards. That's our goal. One of those billboards in the interim, you bought the underlying fee for, and it's on a month-to-month lease. You can tell us to take it down at any time. But even if you tell us to take that one down tomorrow, we still have 5 billboards that we're willing to take down. All 5 are economically viable. We provide you with engineering reports on all 5 of those boards. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're here. There's ads on them. They're as economically viable today as they have ever been, and they will continue to be long after probably everyone on this council is off the council. But you have an opportunity now to take those boards down. What you don't have to do to take those boards down is pass this ordinance. This ordinance is not necessary for us to enter into a removal and replacement agreement. Removal and replacement agreements are specifically authorized by statute. They're specifically authorized because they violate the code. We're not looking for a variance. A removal and replacement agreement is something the city decides to do with a private sign company in order to further one of its goals, i.e. remove billboards. We've been negotiating that agreement for several years, and whether or not you pass this ordinance doesn't impact the ability of the council to enter into the agreement. The council doesn't have to give itself permission to enter into an agreement, if you follow that logic. And so while the council may want to add this to its code, this ordinance is not going to affect anybody other than Lamar, because nobody other than Lamar has more than one sign. So if you don't have more than one sign, you can't remove 45% of your signs. So the ordinance really doesn't make much sense, particularly in Destin, where you have prohibited any new billboards. So the only party it would ever apply to is Lamar, and the way Lamar would get around that is to have a removal and replacement agreement with the city that's specifically authorized by Chapter 70.20 of the Florida statutes. And that's what we've been trying to do for 4 years, is remove these billboards, build back underground the utilities, build back more aesthetically pleasing boards, more modern boards, get rid of the tri-visions, put up something that has a modern aesthetic, and give the city the opportunity to have space on each of those boards to advertise its things. We provided you with letters from the city of Niceville, city of Fort Walton Beach, recommending the agreement. We provided you with a letter from the Department of Emergency Management talking about what a good partner Lamar was in times of crisis and emergency, and we stand ready to be that partner with the city of Destin. And so for those reasons, pass the ordinance, don't pass the ordinance, may be academic for our removal and replacement agreement, but it won't impact that agreement. And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approach and simply give the council comment this session. Unless there are any questions, my time's up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to speak on this specific issue?
My name is Jesse London. I'm the president and CEO of Tier 1, the competing smaller billboard company. I live in Pensacola Beach, so I don't live here in Destin.
Say that address, though.
3 Portofino Drive, Pensacola Beach. My office is in Navarre, 8668 Navarre Parkway. I just want to let you know that I'm available for any questions that you might have about these billboards. My feeling is that in time, these billboards that are in the market will come down anyway. The economics of them are such that the rent underneath the billboards is going to become too expensive as Destin becomes more valuable. The beauty of Destin is going to become more impressive as more power lines come underground. The technology of Tri-Vision is going to become more expensive to operate, more difficult to find parts, and less demand by advertisers. So when you consider the life of what this deal could look like, I think you can bring them down by natural causes without betting away the beauty of Destin. Thank you.
Council, just a couple of points before you move on once you're done with the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Kim. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this specific topic? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comments. Kim?
Okay, I neglected to mention that this went to the LPA on October 3rd. They did recommend denial. You're not bound by that. It's a recommendation. Also, just to the legal issue, obviously, you know, we've had a difference of opinion, the Lamar's attorney and I, about whether a code amendment is required. But as stated in the staff report, and as discussed with Lamar on multiple occasions, without adoption of the proposed ordinance or other code amendment, Lamar's proposed agreement is prohibited by the code. So if you do want to consider that agreement at a future date, which is currently being negotiated with Kyle Bauman, you would need to approve this on first reading. If you do not approve it on first reading, we will not be taking the agreement back to council without explicit direction from you otherwise. But my legal advice would be this is required for the agreement.
All right, thank you for that. Councilman Bagby.
Mayor, I move that the City Council deny ordinance 24-09-LC, and if I get a second, I would like to say something.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman King. Continue.
You know, this is all, in my mind, about our vision for this city. We're going to spend $30 million or somewhere in that neighborhood just to do phase 1, or maybe it's 21 million now, to do phase 1 to underground the utilities. When you're at the top of the Destin Bridge, the Marlow Bridge, and you look down Highway 98, you know, you don't want to see telephone poles, lines, billboards that make you think you're in Vegas. You want to see the world's luckiest fishing village. That's what I believe. I think when the council passed that ordinance years ago, that's what our vision was. You know, they're in business, and I support businesses, both big and small, but that's not my vision for Destin. And we don't want you trading, and I'll just be personal here. What we don't want you trading is, oh, well, we'll clean up the harbor, so when you're at the top of the Destin Bridge, you can look down and you won't see those ugly telephone poles or those ugly wires running down the street, and you won't see the signs there because we're going to move them all to Crystal Beach. The people in Crystal Beach deserve the same thing as everybody else in everybody's neighborhood up here. We don't want that. You know, we want our utilities buried. Half the neighborhoods out there already have their utilities buried. We want to be able to see, you know, the sky, the trees, the Gulf, for those who are fortunate enough to live, near the Gulf. That's been our vision for a long time. And so I would just ask that we say no, and we move on, and we try to get this city back to a vision that we had, where it's simpler, more beautiful, and more in tune with our citizens. Thank you.
Councilman Schmidt.
Yeah, I'll just speak on this first, and then maybe later on, I'm going to bring up a substitute motion. I just first wanted to say, tonight, the only thing we're focused on is the ordinance 2409 LC. Has nothing to do with any type of agreements. There's no agreement on the table between either of these companies and the city of Destin. Nobody in the public besides potential future city councilwoman spoke on this tonight. Nobody else is here to speak about this tonight. I want to focus on the ordinance right now. I have a vision for Destin as well. And when I look from the Destin Bridge and look down onto 98, I see a lot of signs that past council has allowed to show up on Highway 98. So if some of the members in past councils were that worried about it, we wouldn't be looking at all that signage on 98 right now. So a future plan, an agreement that may or may not, we don't even know. Some attorney spoke about how many signs are going to be removed. We're not even talking about that tonight. We don't know. There's no agreement on our table right now. Only thing I'm looking at is the ordinance. So I'm going to make a substitute motion to allow the public to hopefully come to a second reading to give their input. And I'm going to make a substitute motion that we move that the city council approve ordinance 2409 LC on first reading, and specifically just this ordinance and nothing to do with any agreements about billboards.
All right, I have a substitute motion. Do I?
Second.
A second by Councilman Guile. All right, we'll continue the discussion. We are at Councilman Stevens.
Thank you. City Attorney, can you just do a quick cliff notes and guidance on this so that we don't have to read the whole thing?
What is it?
The Florida statute?
Their statute.
What would you like to know?
I guess the statement about being able to do repairs on it and in regards to the...
I'm sorry, which statement are you talking about?
It was from...
Scott, what statement are you talking about? I don't see that here.
Would you mind repeating the statement you said in regards to this when you handed it out?
Yeah, sure. This is the state.
Are you in number 2 or which?
The first, if you read the preamble to the statute 7020 in the first section.
In the balancing of interests?
Yes, that's the preamble.
Okay, so that's not the law, that's the intent. It says it is a policy of this state to encourage municipalities, counties, and other governmental entities and sign owners to enter into relocation and reconstruction agreements that allow governmental entities to undertake public projects and accomplish public goals without the expenditure of public funds, while allowing the continued maintenance of private investment in signage as a medium of commercial and non-commercial communication. That does not mean that you don't have to amend your code if you want to violate it.
Can I finish, Madam Attorney?
And the reason, I'm just answering my client, so if you could just give me a moment, sir, to answer my client,
Sure.
You can speak next, if they let you. So to answer your question, when you asked me to point to the section that says what he's saying, it does not say that, so that's why I needed him to clarify. Thank you.
All right, yes, sir.
If you look at section 1, the preamble is only the intent of the legislation. Section 1 specifically authorizes municipalities to enter into agreements with private companies to effectuate the removal and replacement of signs. That's the statute. That's what it says. There are no cases that cite the statute or interpret it, but that's what the law is. And it's consistent with the idea that as a council, you have the authority to make ordinances and rules, and you have the ability to enter into agreements. The legislature has given you the specific ability to go against an existing ordinance or code if the agreement will serve a greater public purpose. And the public purpose here is the removal of signs and the inclusion of Destin's public messages on other signs, among other things. But that's it. Like I said, even if you were to reject this ordinance or pass the ordinance, it wouldn't mean that we couldn't come back and have a discussion about a removal and replacement agreement. That's the reason the statute says what it says.
Okay, thank you.
Can you shut that, please?
Oh, just push that button again.
Otherwise, it gives feedback. Okay, well, I didn't know Scott was the city attorney, but in my opinion, we will not be coming back with the agreement unless you approve this ordinance. So if you want the agreement, approve the ordinance. If you don't want the agreement, don't approve the ordinance. But this ordinance is citywide, so it's not just about Lamar. You're thinking about any agreement. So if you like the prohibition and the code the way it is, you would not want to adopt this. If you want to make changes and have the ability to consider agreements, which would come before you separately, then you would adopt it. That's what it's about.
Thank you so much.
Just get a quick clarification. You just made a comment that says if we want the agreement to approve this.
Well,
So
if
can
you
we
want
just-
any agreement, because right now, the code does not allow you to replace billboards once they come down. So that was a policy, as Ms. Trammell stated earlier, that this council put into place many years ago. It's not my policy, it's the city council's policy. You can change it or you can keep it. I don't have a position, but what I do have a position on is the legal issue. If we start violating our own codes, then that renders them arbitrary, and why do we have them? When we did exceptions, for example, with the livery vessels, we put into an ordinance that there is the ability to get an exception by agreement approved by the city council. We do not do that arbitrarily, at least not in my time as city attorney under my advice. So for what that's worth, again, this is my legal advice to you.
Right, and I know we had a couple more up there, so if you guys plug back in, I'm sorry. I know Councilman Gile, were you on that list? Yeah, jump on in and.
Thank you. I agree with Councilman Schmidt. It's rare, but I do agree with you, sir. I think we need to have a second reading, just to allow the public to come here and understand what's going on and give their voice. Because I think that even if this doesn't directly respond to Lamar, there is potential that we could, there's other safety factors that could come into play here that could help protect the citizens of Destin.
Councilman King.
Yeah, I can see it both ways, but you know, I'm not going to support the substitute motion. You know, when y'all were here most recently, maybe not most recently, but you know, y'all brought to our attention that there's 50-something digital signs on Highway 98. Y'all painted a beautiful picture of what Lamar is going to do, and I think that it's awesome, and I'm really grateful for what y'all are in the process of doing nationwide, or however wide your span is. You know, what flipped where I flipped last time was, what are we thinking, even considering approving any more billboards? It's like, and I know that's not what this is exactly, but you know, anything that gives the like leniency or, you know, leans us towards more billboards. I really like you guys. I do not like your billboards. It's nothing against you. We're trying to put everything underground, and I'm saying any billboards. I just don't care for them. I would like to see everything go underground, and I don't want to make any moves that potentially make way for renewal and replacement or more billboards, or so I'm not gonna support the substitute motion. I would like to see everything underground, and I would personally like to see all the digital signs gone that break our, you know, code of ordinances. So I'm sure someone's gonna yell at me for saying that, but here we are. That's all I got.
All right, I don't see any other, yep, Councilwoman Aber.
So the substitute motion, is it just to draw in the public's information and in like their feedback? Kevin, can you tell me what you're thinking? Like, we need them to come in and say, we don't want you guys to allow billboards, or these billboards that are going to be, they take down 6 or 7, and then the 6 or 7 that they leave turn into 25 digitals because they're able to spin out. You want the public to come in and weigh in their importance of getting our city back to that clean view. I'm just just, we can't talk unless we're on the dais, so I kind of need to know why you want to approve it, just to draw in the public?
Well, I want to approve it tonight on first reading to get to the chance to go to the second reading. That would be the point of tonight. Sure, if it's to get public involved, I mean, it's been stated many times up here that you put this billboard thing into an ordinance, you're going to have the entire Nextdoor app and everybody's mom and dad up here with pitchforks. And it didn't happen tonight. I'm not saying they don't care, but I want more people to be, understanding, because, again, this is not about the agreement, okay? This is just about this ordinance, and there potentially, if an agreement was made, if we even got to that point, which we could still have an agreement brought to us if we don't pass this tonight, because the city council can make a motion to have her go negotiate an agreement with them if 4 of us agree to that. So that could still happen. But there are potential benefits of taking down billboards that are massive eyesores, that are breaking and dilapidated, and doing something different. There's possible revenue generation ideas that could be looked into with potential billboards that may or may not come up. So the idea of a final agreement, we're so far from right now. We could pass this thing on 2 readings and still deny an agreement. Right?
Absolutely, if you want to.
Right, I mean, so we could pass this ordinance, still has to, an agreement would have to then still be passed by the city of council, by 4 of us. So, I mean, honestly, Ms. Hebert, it's to give us one more meeting, have another look at it, have potential public come and talk on it specifically, not about an agreement, because there's no pictures right now on this slideshow about billboards. It's just about the ordinance. So that's why. Long-winded answer, apologize.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, I would just say, and what if we have the same amount of people next time? And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that show up on this issue? We know, I will tell you, I thought we would be here till 11 o'clock tonight, because I thought we would have 40 boat captains and every single luxury yacht captain or owner, and we would have, we would be here till 11 o'clock, and I'm going to probably miss it by 2 hours because we don't have every boat captain and every livery vessel owner and every, person with an interest. I mean, we've got what we've got, and I just... You're right, the ordinance, but the ordinance is a vehicle to say, yeah, we might be good at some point with replacement, and I'm not. I want to get rid of, I'm kind of like where Johnny is. I like you guys, but I'd get rid of all the digital signs too. And I would get rid of all the billboards in this town, and I've held that view for a long time and not changing now.
All right, am I missing anyone who would like to speak? Councilman Destin?
Yeah, you guys have got me a little confused as to Robert's rules here. The first motion was to deny adoption, but when you adopt an ordinance, you don't have to make a motion to deny, you simply don't adopt it. And then the substitute is to adopt it, what?
On first reading.
On first reading, and have an additional public hearing, because this is a public hearing tonight?
Just to adopt it.
Okay, so it's just to adopt it on first reading. Okay, well, as I say, a motion to not adopt, I'm not sure is a proper motion under Robert's rules, so your substitute does clear that up anyway.
Anything further? All right, we are going to call the vote on continuing this to second reading.
Can you be clear on what the question is and the motion right now that they're voting on?
I move the city council approve ordinance 2409 LC on first reading.
Just to get it to second reading?
I mean,
No,
that's arbitrary. All right, 5-2, the nays have it. The motion.
With that, there will not be a second reading,
Yeah.
and I will not be taking the agreement to council.
All right, public hearing dies for 5A. Moving on to 5B.
This is first reading of ordinance 2415 CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to livery vessels, amending sections 13141 definitions and 13144 application for permit of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for findings of fact, clarifying the definition of livery vessel, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Seeing this is a public hearing, this is all y'all's time to speak on this matter. If anyone from the public wishes to speak on this topic specifically, this is your time to do so. Do I see anyone who would like to? Yes, sir.
By the way, I had a cup of coffee, so I'd have some energy. That was about 4 hours ago.
Name and address, sir.
Yes, good evening, members of the council. My name is Matt Condon. I reside at 99 Cayman Cove. I'm a licensed captain and proud owner and operator of Destin Private Tiki and Destin Private Yachts. I would like to address the matter of the first reading of ordinance 24-15-CC, specifically the proposed amendment to include all bareboat charters within the scope of the livery regulations. Our company provides a range of services, including operating inspected charter vessels, uninspected charter vessels, and private yacht bareboat charters. As someone who actively operates all three types of charters in Destin, I believe my perspective is both well-rounded and somewhat impartial. The primary concern before us is the city's intention to broaden the livery ordinance to encompass all bareboat charters. While the goal may be to enhance the effectiveness of existing regulations, the change would, in practice, lead to a de facto ban on private yacht charters in Destin. The proposed change in definition is problematic for several reasons. I'd like to articulate a few of them. The economic impact. Destin would become the only city in Florida to ban private yacht charters. This would affect bars, restaurants on the harbor, small and medium-sized businesses, and have a somewhat of a significant impact on the Destin Harbor. And it attracts valuable tourists. I can tell you without a doubt that there are certain types of charter guests, those that rent large houses on 30A, that come to Destin only for the purpose of private yacht charters. This change will have an impact on small operators. Many small and part-time operators will be forced out of business. They don't have the ability to adjust slips quickly or move out of town because they're not allowed to operate here. And it would be a loss of larger businesses. These are the ones who have the ability to move to Fort Walton and continue to operate in the waters of Destin legally, which they're doing now. There is a group whose voice is not going to be spoken here, but it's a group that's very dear to me, and they are our clients. Just last week aboard the Misbehavin', we had a 99-year-old celebrating his birthday with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I believe there were 11 on this vessel. Again, that would be illegal if you adopt the current offering. And finally, on a personal note, some of you have heard me say this before, I'm deeply opposed to any regulation that erodes personal freedoms. If you buy a boat and yacht and you decide to charter it, you can charter it in any city in the United States of America, except Destin, if we adopt 2415 CC. But unlike previous occasions when all I've done is raise objections, today I have two potential solutions for you guys. Solution one is the simple one. It's a one sentence added to paragraph 18, section 13-44 in the application, and it reads, vessels whose registration length is 32 feet and larger are exempt when they are operated by a licensed captain and are not engaged in fishing operations. It means this has no effect on pontoons. This has no effect on the fishing business or the fishing fleet. Very simple paragraph, a sentence, and it would solve all of our problems. The second thing.
Quickly on the second. I'm going to let you go because you have solutions, but quick on the second one.
Second one is, if the simple solution is not acceptable or is inadequate, I'd offer an alternative. Given the fact that private yacht charters were not originally contemplated under the original livery ordinance, I propose passing a resolution that reads, existing private yacht bareboat charter operators may apply for a permit. In closing, I hope the council will consider these proposals as a means to maintain both the economic vitality of our city, its businesses, and the individual freedoms we cherish. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. All right. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this topic? Yes.
Hi, I'm Patty Brown, 86 Shire Street, Destin, Florida. I'd be willing to rename misbehaving code enforcement for that slip, since we're paying $2,000 a month. Anyways, I wanted to talk today because we started a business, a day charter private yacht business. It's a 46-foot cruiser yacht named Misbehaving. It's not used for fishing any way, shape, or form. Prior to purchase, we called the city and spoke with the people that oversaw the moratorium. And they indicated, because we always had a Coast Guard merchant marine credential captain, that we would not be included in this moratorium. So we proceeded with the purchase. We've been operating for 2 to 3 years to all 5-star reviews. And as Matt said, we are providing a service for a different group of people. It's different from the pontoon boats or the fishing boats. Not that we're better, but we expand entertainment options for those that are seeking that. We're concerned that this ordinance change is going to make it really tough for us to do business, maybe even preclude us from doing business, and we don't think that's fair. We also don't think it's fair that the people with inactive license or medallions, whatever you want to call them, are trying to jack the price up because they know the city council may put us in a tough spot. So we're looking to you, the city council, to help us out here. We've done all the things that these people did to get their medallions in terms of commercial dock space, parking, bathrooms, all those types of things. So we've done that, and we're going to have to continue to do that. So it doesn't make any sense that we should have to pay for those when they got them for free. I do agree with Matt Condon that you could put something in like boats over 32 feet that precluded fishing would be excluded from the moratorium. Might solve the concerns of the fishing fleet. And if that does happen, then I think the city should grandfather us in. Those existing businesses that have been doing good and following the rules should be grandfathered in with some extra license at no cost that the city may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right. Yes, ma'am. Mike, you're second up.
She's right behind me.
No. Only because I know his name, I was going to give him.
Carrie Harbarger, Spring Lane. I want to address the council about this livery issue, and I want to bring something up that we discussed this in 2013. I have notes at the house. I want to remind this council that the reason or actually what this brings to the community, because back when we had blight and we were trying to figure out what we needed to do to bring better clientele here. Does anybody remember when the TDC was soliciting to the 75,000 or 50,000 gross income? Nobody remembers that on. We had a hard time with blight, and our idea was to bring our community back out. Granted, I love the fishermen too, but not everybody comes to Destin to fish anymore. These guys just going to have to realize that. People come here for other stuff. These people are selling an amenity. They're selling Destin. You should see a video I have with me right now, what these people offer. It's ridiculous to turn, you're talking NFL players and stuff come and paid to go with these people. All they're doing is looking at Destin, gawking at these people. To do away with this is a crime. These people shop locally, they come here, they stay here, and my son does run the boat, and I am up here speaking on behalf of somebody that does, I'm not speaking on his behalf, but I am saying that what they offer is an amenity to this community. People pay big money just to come right around. I don't understand what the hardship is and what the bellyache is. And furthermore, if we want to talk about Coast Guard inspections, I'm not trying to be nasty when I say they ain't trying to go out that pass in a 50-year-old wooden boat. So, thanks.
Mike Abity, 530 Harbor Boulevard. I can certainly sympathize with the guys that are concerned about paying for their licenses and medallions. I can also sympathize with them not wanting to be under the livery vessel licensing process. I have nightmares from 5 years ago when we were before this council, when we were arguing the same point. We didn't want to have to have licensing. We fought it. You see where it got us. Okay. As far as the pricing, selling of medallions that was mentioned, they don't want to pay the price. There's two people that I know of in the livery vessel industry. One of them's in this building right now, in this room right now, that have paid between $20,000 and $25,000 for medallions that have been for sale. Okay, so they've already created a price. There's people that have already paid for those permits. To get to what I really want to address is I want to address the definition, and two definitions, one of the livery vessel and one of the bareboat charters. Several weeks ago, Mr. Bagby, you made a comment that you were upset that the overnight parking at Crystal Beach wasn't being enforced properly. Mr. Destin, at the same meeting, you made a comment that the illegal beach vendors were of a concern to you. They weren't being taken care of by code enforcement. I have a more egregious problem, is that over the last 3 years, okay, the rogue operators, which are the pontoon boat, fishing boat, yacht guys, have been operating without any licensing or permits. Through research and observation, and I can prove any of this to any of you at any time, there's roughly 2 to 3 dozen rogue operators operating in and around the city of Destin, okay, in and out the harbor on a daily basis, okay? If they operate 100 days and they make $1,000 a day, each of these businesses, let's just say there's 30 of them to use a round number, they're doing an average of $100,000 a year apiece. That's $3 million worth of non-taxed illicit money that's being taken away. Over the last 3 years, that comes to almost $10 million and about 10,000 violations. Of those violations, code enforcement has not written one citation. I think they've given some warnings. I don't think there's been any citations. I don't think there's been any money collected from any of these people. 10,000 violations, $10 million worth of illicit gains from these illegal businesses, and it's been tolerated. It's getting to a point where, that's why I plead with you, we need to get these definitions right. We need to be where it's easy to understand, easy to enforce, easy for code enforcement to enforce it, but you guys need to understand it. I understand that staff is submitting a definition for you guys to read and to address. The last definition that staff gave to council several years ago has been the reason why nobody's been cited for giving citations for these illegal operations is because the codes that are on the books are unenforceable. The definition is so vague and so ambiguous that the city realizes if we give somebody a citation, they take us to court, they have a lawyer, they take us to the city magistrate, we cannot win. So if we're not going to win, we're not going to give them a citation. Okay? And that's why there have been no citations issued up to this point over the last 5 years, okay, with these illegal operators. So I'll plead with you guys, we have to get the definition right. We have to get it to where it's easy. Read the city, the definition that the city's giving you to address. How many times did you have to read it before you understood it? I understand these kind of things. I had to read it 3 or 4 times for me to understand it. So we went before the Harbor Steering Committee. I presented this same argument to them. They agreed with my definition unanimously, 5-0. These are guys that make their living on the harbor, the members of this committee. They make their living on the harbor. 2 of them are licensed captains. All of them are avid boaters, and they understand these rules and regulations. Captain Green's here today to answer your questions. He was the chairman of that committee, so he can answer any of the questions about what they accepted, what they didn't accept. I offer an alternative definition. Also, I'll offer a definition that all bareboat charters are livery vessels, and it's all inclusive. Once you do that, all these guys are going to have to get a livery vessel license. If I have permission, I can give out copies of my definition for y'all to look at. And I ask you to read the city's staff's definition or read my definition and see which one you think might be easier to understand, but John Q. citizens to understand.
Are you going to bill us
I
for this?
can't wait to see this.
Have you seen it already?
I don't know. Let's see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, well. You are at 6
So I
minutes.
just asked you what's that?
You are at 6 minutes if you want a third person to give you time. All right.
I got a crew.
I know you have one, so I've been counting. You used one of them.
No, because it's very important, guys. We need to get the definition right this time. If y'all don't change this definition and get it to where it's easy to understand, easy for the public to understand, easy for code enforcement to understand so they can enforce it, okay, then you're in the same position as the council 5 years ago that agreed this. It's going to be on your backs if it's unenforceable, okay? And it's almost going to be a point of your aiding and abetting the rogue charters.
Let me address the definition, okay? Because I am all for a definition that everybody thinks is simple. There was one concern I had about this, and I'll explain it. I don't have a personal opinion if you want to go this route, but my concern with the enforcement of this is at the very end. The beginning's all good, but where it says, and has a written contract between both parties stating so, for me, that's a little bit difficult for the special magistrate because we don't have a copy of that unless they give it to us. Further, I was afraid that it would create a loophole, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but the loophole that I was worried about is if somebody has a contract at one point, then they're meeting a definition, and if they don't have a contract for another rental, they aren't, or vice versa. So depending on the contract that we don't have possession of could affect the enforcement at the magistrate. And so I didn't want to deal with the contract language, but
Yes,
do answer.
my argument is that you do have a copy of these contracts. When we fill out our application for livery vessels, we have to provide a copy of our contracts that we have with our customers. That's part of the package, if I'm not mistaken. So you will have copies of these contracts. Also, the U.S. Coast Guard and Florida Marine Patrol request us to have a dual copy contract, one that we keep on premise and one that we give to the renter of the vessel to carry on the vessel. So if they stop those customers out on the water, they can see that contract, they can see who's supposed to be on that boat, what kind of contract it is. Does it have a licensed captain? Does it not have a licensed captain?
Don't you have, do you mind if I ask a question?
Please.
Don't you have different contracts for each renter? Because the bareboats do, the bareboats do. They enter into a contract per renter. And so every single time they rent the boat out, it's a different contract.
We have one contract for pontoon boats, one contract for jet skis, that's it.
But we want to
all the customers get the same
one of the things you wanted to do was include bareboats, right?
If I rent one of my pontoon boats out, to a group that wants to wants to have a bachelorette party. And the lady on the phone, when she's making the reservation, asked me, can you provide us with a captain or a driver? And I said, well, I can give you a list, or you can get your own. Here's my list, here's your own. That does not enter into my contract. My contract is with that lady that's renting that boat. I've got nothing to do with her hiring a captain or a driver or paying a captain or a driver. That's a separate deal between her and the driver. That is not included in my contract. My contract that goes to my customer has nothing about a bareboat charter. It has livery vessel. Now, here's the caveat. The Coast Guard does not use the term livery vessel. They use the term bareboat charter. Nowhere in their paperwork is the word livery vessel. The city and the state have come up with the term livery vessel. All bareboat charters are livery vessels. There's only 4 categories for the U.S. Coast Guard. There's two divisions. There's a commercial division, which has a 6-pack charter, which all commercials require licensed captains. The commercial has 2 divisions. Number 1, 6-pack charters, okay, which have to have a captain. The illegal guys don't want to do that because they don't want to limit it to 6 passengers, so they don't qualify for that. The other category under commercial is inspected vessels. They don't want to have their vessels inspected because it's too costly to have it inspected, so they don't qualify for commercial 6-pack or inspected vessel. The other half is called, the Coast Guard uses, is called recreational. Under recreational, they have 2 divisions. One is private boats. If you have a boat that you want to go out on a weekend and take your family, privately owned vessel, not used for any business purposes, that is one category. Other category is bareboat charters. Everything else has to go under bareboat charters. The only division that these yachts and these illegal guys operating fall under is bareboat charters, which is livery vessels.
Let me ask you this, because the beginning of your definition is fine and easy to read. What if we just took out the contract language? Because I think that makes it harder for us.
Okay, this is not etched in stone. This is a suggestion. If you use it, you can edit it, you can tweak it. I'm not egotistical here. I don't have to have my name on it. You can use it.
I want to give you all the drafting
You can use
credit.
it and manipulate it any way you want to make it simple for the public, for these people to understand it and for the public to understand it.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. See their point trying to take out the captain language that has confused people for many years. I would be okay with this if council prefers it without the contract language. It's up to council.
All right. Name and address, and the floor is yours, sir.
Kyle Lowe, Charter Boat Special K, 66 Harbor Boulevard in Destin is where my business is located. I'm going to be simple as usual. I have a difficult time filtering my thoughts, so I try to avoid this public testimony. But Mr. Bagby pointed out, people don't show up, so somebody's got to do it right. So what this gentleman said about the 32-foot and over and the lack of fishing, that sounds wonderful to me. Now, my friends in the pontoon industry, I'm not an expert on that, so I have no idea how they feel about it. But for a fisherman's standpoint, that sounds wonderful. But I think what I want to just explain why the fishermen are looking for any type of protection. I can't tell you how many Gulf Council meetings, DCBA meetings I've been to where law enforcement, Coast Guard, NOAA, FWC shows up, and boy, they talk big. They pound on the board and they say, man, I'm the no-nonsense guy. This legal stuff's over. I'm the man. I don't put up with it. And for the better part of 10 years, not one has had the fortitude to follow through what they've told us at those meetings. They're not going to enforce it. The illegal charters going on is through the roof, and nobody is going to do anything about it. These idle threats of SWAT teams with jet skis, it's all garbage. It's all trying to deter people from doing it, but they're not actually going to do it. They've proven that. I mean, it's so easy. To try to address it on the water is pointless. It's too many boats. But anybody can pick up their phone right now and book an illegal charter in Destin, Florida in 5 minutes. Coast Guard knows this. NOAA knows this. FWC knows this. They've been provided by evidence by myself, screenshots. You can go book a bareboat charter in Destin, Florida right now where it says captain and crew provided. Coast Guard themselves was at a city council meeting, and Johnny King asked him a question, and he said, no, that's not legal. You can provide a list, but they want to provide their own captain. You have to allow them or void the contract. If they say, I want to take the boat myself with no captain, you have to allow them or void the contract. So I have no issue with this gentleman running that business. The problem is the federal guys, the state, they're not going to enforce it. They're just going to let it go. They've done it this whole time. Why would they change? They don't have the fortitude to enforce it. They've proven it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, anyone else from the public wish to speak on this topic? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Gary Troop. I live at 86 Shira Street, and I'm a co-owner in the Misbehavin' private yacht that we started in 2021. And if we're doing illegal things and rogue things, I'm the worst criminal you've ever seen because we coordinate with everybody. We've been boarded by the Coast Guard and inspected. A bareboat charter is legal. It's not illegal, okay? We follow all the ordinances, even though we're not, in the moratorium, we, as Patty said, we spend $2,000 a month for dock space, commercial dock space, to have parking and bathrooms. We pay $13,000 a year for commercial insurance. We always send our boat out with a Coast Guard licensed captain from a list that customers can choose from. We'd like to continue to do business in the city of Destin. And I don't think we compete with fishing or really with pontoon boats, maybe pontoon boats in a very fringe area with bachelorette parties, but we service a different market at a different price, okay? We get calls about doing a bachelorette party and we're too expensive. They go to the pontoon boats, okay? So we're not, we will bring some people here that may not come and they may try to do that. We've been doing this for almost 3 years. And we've been following all the rules and spent all the money that the people that have medallions are doing. And we're going to have to do that to keep a medallion if we get one, okay? And let me say that people try to equate those medallions to commercial fishing licenses, and that's the intrinsic value, and they should be resellable and so forth, even if they're inactive. But with a commercial fishing license, if it goes inactive, they don't get to keep them because you can manipulate the price of fish. So, you need to think about that. So bigger companies could start not using their medallions, shrink the pontoon market, and raise the price if they wanted to. They could manipulate the market. I am an entrepreneur. I'm really for free enterprise, less government regulation. I think the market will eventually work itself out. It gets ugly. You guys got way too many pontoon boats. I think that would have corrected itself, but I understand why you did it. I don't think you should allow people to jack up the price of inactive medallions. You kind of created the Bitcoin of the sea, in my opinion. I understand when businesses are sold or boats are sold, those got to go with it. That's only fair to the business that's been created. But I want to tell you, whatever you decide, we will try to stay and operate in Destin. And let me underscore it, we will try, because you have to understand that running a small business where the margins are already thin, it makes it pretty tough. If you don't allow us to operate. And again, we're not illegal, we're not rogue. I'm sure there are some out there in the yacht business, just like there are in their pontoon and the fishing business. And I don't think you have the resources. If the Coast Guard and the federal government aren't going to enforce rules, I don't think you guys are going to hire a bunch of people to do that. I may be wrong, but that's what I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public comments, and I believe Councilman Stevens up first.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to make a motion, but after I make the motion, I definitely want to continue talking. I think we got a few different topics that we're going to have to discuss. Of course, number one, the motion, the definition. And then we're probably going to briefly chat about the registration / AKA medallions, potentially a lottery system, which I think will make it toward these yacht guys. We'll make it to where it'll be easily to achieve and probably a lot cheaper than some of these medallions that went for sale or that are up for sale now. And then, of course, we'll probably eventually talk about registration expirations. I'm not sure if we're going to be talking about all these tonight, but like I said, these are discussion topics that we will be having. But pretty much, we got to get definition in place. Otherwise, there's no real reason to discuss all the other items. So I'm going to make an alternate motion. I move that City Council adopt ordinance 24-15 CC, amending the definition of livery with using the definition from the Harbor Steering Capacity Committee recommendation, but with 2 modifications. One, we're going to remove the contract language. And then also, we're going to add, after internal combustion, we're going to add or electric engines because electric engines is the next coming. We'll see where it goes, and then I'd like to continue my discussion if I get a second.
Second.
All right, second by Councilman King. Just so I have it down, the removal, your 1 and 2 for the amendments to the steering is removal of what?
It's the removal of the contract language.
Okay.
And then number 2 is to add or electric after combustion.
John, just while we're talking, can you point me to where specifically, when you said the steering committee's motion, where are you looking at specifically?
It's in the staff report.
Yeah, staff report, page 3 in the middle.
If not, Mr. Abity actually gave, I think,
No, he didn't.
Oh, no? Okay.
That includes the sailboats or any other vessel not.
I'll show you.
Sorry. Okay, sorry, I didn't get a copy, so.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
All right.
Here you go. Continue on.
Am I good? Okay. All right, so pretty much being a livery slash bareboat operator myself, I can see how that verbiage of the U.S. Coast Guard captain is confusing. So I think this definition is going to solve it. Also, with this current definition, instead of using what isn't, it's using what is. So I think it's just going to make it a little bit more clear. So Mr. Abdi said it earlier, a livery is acknowledged by the state, the county, and the city. Bareboat is acknowledged by federally. One thing that we always have to remember, everyone keeps on saying that we're adding bareboats in this ordinance. We're not adding it. Bareboat has always been not allowed. All we're doing is we're just making it more clear. What else do I got? Hold on. So do y'all just want to discuss the definition first, and then maybe we can continue on with the other topics? Probably better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilman Bagby?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I'm just going to read it for Ray's benefit to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of paper. So as is in the staff report, what was passed by the Harbor Steering Committee. Livery vessel is defined in Florida Statute 327.02, and any motorized vessel that is rented, leased, and/or chartered by the owner to another party for a designated period of time, and that party is under control of that vessel at all times, period. Okay? Next sentence is, but does not mean paddleboards, kayaks, canoes, and sailboats, or any other vessel not powered by an internal combustion engine, or a sail, or or after an internal combustion engine, or an electric engine, or a sailboards excluded, period. Bareboat charter is a livery vessel, period. Each vessel that is included within the fleet of a boat club is a livery vessel, period. Now, what I didn't understand, John, and I'm not sure, they also approved adding to the city code at an appropriate location, any person or entity. Did you want that included?
That was, I believe, Kim, we added that. That was part of the original, if I remember correctly. Is that right? The second part? I'll have to
It
refer
says
back.
it's underneath the livery definition discussed and recommended by the Harbor Steering Committee. So I'm just trying to I just want to know what we're voting on. That's all.
Yes.
So that is part of it?
That is part of it. That's to help staff know what paperwork they're taking in and be able to enforce.
Okay. All right, so, Ray, you don't need me to read that whole paragraph, do you?
No, but I didn't hear you said something about removing the contract language.
Yeah, I didn't say it.
Right.
Which is why it's removed. Yeah,
Correct,
it's
that's what I
removed.
asked to remove.
Yeah.
All right, so with that, Captain Green, do you have anything being on that committee, the steering?
As Mr. Councilman Bagme was reading, it was the entire thing, all the way through to motion pass, and it was for the definition, for clarity, and everything. Like that was it was a long discussion, and as we worked through it, that was what we found to be the most simplest way of spelling it out to where there is no, you can't convolute it too much.
Okay. All right. Anyone else like to speak on the motion? Councilman Bagby again?
Mr. Mayor, if I could for a second
please,
too.
keep going.
I just want to say that I'm the chairman of all three committees that brought this, the Harbor CRA, the Harbor and Waterways Board, and the steering committee. And every single one of our committees agreed that they wanted bareboats in livery included in the definition. And every one of them also offered a suggestion on how to encompass that. So while the testimony was, one side and the other, I want to, this isn't going to make it illegal for people to run private charters, yacht charters in Destin. It would preclude them to only 6 passengers. And every single person up there on all three committees wanted them in livery because the whole point of the moratorium was to cap the amount of rental vessels in the Destin area, period. It wasn't because it was a yacht or a pontoon boat. It was to cap that. And this definition I was on all three of them, and this definition kind of culminated. And, there was different things as like precluding certain measurements and amenities on the boat. There was things about having a time certain of people who were doing business 2-3 years ago. There was a few things to it, but this, I think, encompassed all of it. And it was to include them, and it was also to figure out what to do with the folks that had been operating previously 2-3 years back. So I just wanted to make that known before you make your vote on the definition. Thank you.
Jim, real quick, when you say this definition, you mean the definition Mr. Stevens?
That's correct. The last meeting we had was the Harbor Steering Committee, and this kind of included all three. First it was CRA, then Harbor and Waterways Board, and there's a few people that are on the same ones of those committees, and this kind of edged up to the point where staff and myself and a few others that are on multiple committees agreed that this was this kind of honed in on what we were trying to do. And it's not, and everybody agreed, we need to include them in livery so that we cap the amount of effort that's of that rental boat industry, yachts, pontoons, all of it. And then also making a path forward for those who had been doing business in the city allowed to do business in previous years, not last year, but, as this gentleman said, he'd been in business since 2001. Those are not the ones we're trying to preclude. Once everybody found out about bareboats, there was a huge influx last year and this past summer. So that's what I think this really shows what everybody was trying to get. It was a lot of hours between all three meetings, I promise you.
All right. Councilman Gow?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, thanks. I appreciate it, Tori. I come at this as a consumer. Okay, I know less about this issue than probably anybody up on this dais. I know less than 3 or 4 that, own boats and have run these businesses and everything. But as a consumer, I don't know, if I go down and some guy hands me a piece of paper and says, here, sign this, there's your boat, if it's got life vests on for how many ever people I got, I don't know if I got 7 or 12 or what, I just know that's my boat, and I get on it and I go around the harbor, and I might go out, by the bridge or something, or out to Crab Island. And I assume we're just going to approve this verbiage, this definition first, and then we're going to go on to the other parts. Here's what because that was a little confusing to me too. Here's what I would like to see, and I don't know how we get there, because I kind of see the end state, but I'm not sure all the steps to get there because I don't know this business. You know, I want to see, the main thing I want to see, I'll be honest with you, is to strike the word medallion from our vocabulary.
So medallion's not, yeah, it's not.
Okay, it is a registration, and if you sell your boat and you sell your boat with that registration, I got it. But if you aren't using your registration, it has no value. There shouldn't be a market for registrations that are issued by the city. We should not be creating a value on something that has no value, because we could change our mind next week and issue 100 more registrations or 100 more licenses or whatever you want to call them. That is the most insane part of this whole thing to me, is that we have a market out there that we created. I wasn't up here, but we, the council, previous councils, created this black market for medallions. Hey, I got 2. You want to buy one for $25,000? Are you kidding me? No. So that's the main thing I want to get rid of. I want to take care of the fishing fleet. You know, as I said, the last time we had this, and we had 40 boat captains here, there's enough here for everybody. There's enough here for the luxury yachts. There's enough here for the fishing fleet. There's enough here for the pontoon boats. There is enough pie for everybody, and we ought to be fair. You know, maybe we're going to talk about lottery later, but I would tell you those inactive licenses and registrations, if I would go to the luxury folks who were told they didn't need one, and I would say we need to figure out, and again, I'm the least smart on this, but if they had a BTR, do y'all have a BTR? Okay, if they had a BTR as of last year as a business in this city and they paid their BTR, or they filed for their BTR, they ought to go to the top of the registration or license list for these city-issued registrations. And then when we get those 10, or whatever they said it was last time, then we can go about doing a lottery for more pontoon boats, which I would, you know, I guess to be fair, I'd have to vote for, but I would go to the fishing fleet and the luxury yacht. The end state is we ought to have a vibrant harbor, and we ought to have, you know, options for all our consumers. For consumers, whether it's me or it's my brother-in-law coming over or whatever, we ought to have those options. But this inactive license or registration, that's the issue that I want to hone in on, other than being fair to everybody.
All right, Councilman Gao, appreciate that.
Thank you. I want to focus on one other topic. We keep talking about a piece of the pie, but what we seem to fail to remember is the Army Corps of Engineers explained to us that the pie is overflowing. So this piece of the pie should be smaller than where we're at now. One of the statements that they made during that meeting was based off our capacity. We are subject to imminent severe injury or possible death. So this is more of a safety factor than it is just making sure everybody gets to make a dollar. So I think we need to be extremely stringent with this rule. I think we need to try to minimize how many actual licenses we have out on the harbor and protect our locals and our visitors.
Thank you for that. Number 4, Councilwoman Aber.
I was just going to say that I was trying to figure out, are we just trying to get the verbiage corrected and then work on getting those that have been working for 3 years at this in? So I think we're on board with that, so I'm going to let it go.
Councilman King.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, I agree with what a lot of Mr. Bagby had to say. Some of it I don't agree with. I think I just wanted to make the point. I don't think anybody. I don't dislike the yacht boat charters. I think one of the yes, you are legal, by way of Coast Guard and federal guidelines or whatever hoops you got to jump through. You know, I think part of my concern is making it, if we open this door and we do not adopt this definition, my concern is not for you. I think that you bring a great service. I've said this time and time again. I think y'all bring a wonderful service for this community, and you do cater to a clientele that is maybe a little more well-to-do. You know, my only concern in this whole thing has ever been with the charter fishing fleet. Since the last meeting, I saw with my own 2 eyes a guy who was permitted for 6 passengers, his 6-pack boat, redesignates his boat as a bareboat charter and has taken 11 people. That puts his whole dock in jeopardy. And so, and there were multiples. I mean, there were several others. There was talk of a lot of other people doing it, and I hate the rogue operators. I think it's crap. I wish there was something we could do about it. You know, I'm going to support this motion. You know, and I think that I understand you guys have paid a ton of money to be in this business. Everything flows more freely on every other level, except for maybe yours, to be in the livery vessel classification, as far as I can see. That's where I am with it. So, thanks.
Councilman Schmidt.
Just a few questions, because it's very confusing. Based on Mr. King's comment, that boat changed from 6-pack to 11. Maybe you can answer, John or staff or whatever. With a change in this, what changes that? How does that fix what the example you gave? I'm just trying to understand, how does that fix? Like, this changes.
I think that, I'm sorry, I think you can correct me, that taking out the captain language is one of the big things for them, because it's been confusing, because certain boats have a captain sometimes. And the wording of the ordinance said a captain in control at all times, and so there was confusion. Is a bareboat a livery vessel? They have a captain sometimes, but not always, because when you rent out your bareboat, you relinquish control, and that person can get a captain or not. John, he's nodding.
You are correct.
So that is what they took out.
So meaning if we pass this definition, can you speak a little less attorney?
If we pass this definition, what it's going to do, it's going to make it to where pretty much a livery, depending on whether or not they provide a list of captains or.
Can I specifically just speak to this example?
Okay, so his
He
example,
just
what
gave
changed?
about, I have a 6-pack and I just said whoop-de-woo, now I'm 11.
So all it is you can just change it, but the thing is that captain cannot be the captain at all times.
So what is the city of Destin going to do to that situation?
So
if we pass this.
So if they change,
If they fall into the definition now, they will be required to register as livery vessels.
So that person shouldn't be able to take 11 people.
Here's what the previous definition. Here's what we had. There was a lot of gray area, and when there's a lot of money on the line, people are gonna dive into that gray area. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so
they should, by this new definition, they would not be legally allowed to do the second alternative.
per city Destin, yes, as long unless they have a registration.
Right. So, I mean, I think another piece here missing is there was a statement earlier that we haven't done a single citation for illegal stuff. Is that because it's not a clear definition, or is that because we can't enforce it?
Here's what my thinking is. Okay, so whenever someone registers to get their BTR, I'm going to use an example. So when they register for a BTR to get a bareboat charter, so if they apply for a BTR by saying, I would like to get, I'm a bareboat, they're going to get denied. But if they apply saying that I'm a charter, they're probably going to get approved. So you can use either the first word or the last word of bareboat charter. So it's all based off what word you use, whether or not you can get approved or not.
Right.
So the solution is whenever we get to get the software Civic Plus or whatever, is hopefully we can ask these questions whenever they do their application. And I think that will solve it to where code will be able to do their job.
Okay, and then when the people that were speaking earlier said we're not breaking any laws or the rules, is that because they're following Coast Guard rules? They are a bareboat charter recreational, and they're following the rules.
From what I understand, they're following Coast Guard regulations of the bareboat definition.
The city of Destin does not enforce the Coast Guard rules. They are following all the Coast Guard rules, and I think one of the points is that they don't have to get inspections under the Coast Guard rules, whereas, for example, the fishing vessels do, and it's expensive. So,
Gotcha. So, I guess, you know, it's also hard for me to like pass this and not know what we are going to do next.
Well,
that's a little concerning.
I can discuss it if y'all want. I have some ideas.
I'm just saying that, like, to pass this to the second reading or something, it's like.
But hold on, it's the existing ordinance.
Right.
You already have it in place. So regardless of what happens next, what this does right now is make a clarification to the existing definition. All of the rules that we have in place for livery vessels will apply to anybody that falls into this definition. So what you're doing is clarifying the existing code.
Right, so if this passes, are they going to be in violation?
Yes.
Well, they already are, though.
Yes, and arguably, it already applies to them.
Arguably, but we haven't been able to enforce that for many years.
No,
right?
and so something you all can talk about is what to do about the existing yachts and other businesses that have been operating. You can choose to give them a time frame, a year, 2 years, or whatever, to come into compliance. You can grandfather them in some way, so to speak, make them a legal non-conforming use. There's options for the council to deal with the existing yachts and businesses.
Right. And I understand that, but that's just my concern about voting on one thing. And I hope we would all agree that we would hopefully do that. You know, I don't want to put businesses out of business, okay? I want to be fair across the board to all vessel charters, pontoons, dinghies, sailboats. I mean, I think we should potentially change it to include sailboats. There's sailboat charters nowadays. Why exclude them? The point of the moratorium, from what I was told, was to clear up the harbor for livery vessels, not charter pontoons, or pontoon boats. So to me, sure, let's do it, but let's make sure we're doing it to all vessels. Make it good for the fishing boats, make it good for the current pontoon boats, make it good for the current people that are in business that are already here. Yeah, I'd love to give them time to come into compliance. Yes, if they have to buy a medallion, they buy a medallion. It's, if they don't buy a medallion, but they should be able to have the opportunity, whatever that option ends up being. Nobody should go out of business for whatever this definition changes to tonight. So, thanks. Or after the second reading.
Yeah.
Oh, wise Councilman Destin, help us. Only because you're the ladder of number 7.
Yeah, there are certain things the city can regulate. We can regulate the parking. We can regulate whether they have a bathroom. These are all on shore. What we can't regulate is what they do when they get out into that water. As to John King's question about people switching from charter 6-pack to a bareboat, we've got no control over that. That's a Coast Guard regulation. No matter what we do here, we can't affect that. What strikes me here is that if we gather in these people that have their yachts, we're going to instantaneously make them no longer legal. We can argue that they weren't legal before, but if they weren't legal before, we didn't need to change the ordinance to make them illegal now. The part that bothers me about it is the very fact that, reading this definition about on 18, that's really tortured. And it appears to be pointed directly at trying to make what they're doing not lawful. It's a bit about any person or entity leases, charters one or more vessels to another, but claims their vessel is excluded by definition of livery. And when you read through that, you go, what in the world does that mean? Are we still adopting this portion of whatever it is we're trying to adopt tonight? It appears we are. I don't know what problem we're fixing here. The livery vessel ordinances were passed because we had hundreds of pontoon boats roaring up and down. We don't have hundreds of these yachts. So once again, we're passing an ordinance that's in search of a problem. That appears to me to be a bad thing to do. Do we want to protect our fishing vessels? Of course we do. But this isn't going to do it. So, you know, I don't see that we are fixing a problem here. If we are, it's one that doesn't exist.
All right, Councilman Stevens.
So, so I actually applied for a bareboat out of curiosity just to see what happens. And I've specifically said in my comments, bareboat. And I got a denial letter because it said that you cannot apply for a bareboat because it's a livery. And that's before all this. So currently, the term bareboat is not allowed. So it just was never enforced. So all we're doing is just clarifying what is the definition. Nothing, I mean, once it passes second reading, if I apply for another bareboat, it would get denied also. So like I said, nothing is changing except for just clarifying the definition. And like I said, at one point, we could talk about potential suggestions. I have a whole bunch of suggestions of how to make it work for everybody.
Councilman Bagby, you have something?
Yeah, two quick things. Because I go back to because one of the things that I do want us to do is get better enforcement, because that's the complaints that we get at Joe's Bayou and down on the harbor is, you know, this boat pulled up out of Fort Walton Beach and they put 20 people on there and zipped out and they were gone and we couldn't. And again, we're just dealing with definitions right now. So I'm sure you have a plan to show me how this helps enforcement, but I'm thinking what you were talking about is, you know how the sheriff's office has the license plate reader, so he pulls up behind you, his little thing automatically reads your license plate and says, hey, the registration is expired, or you're wanted in Mississippi for, you know, robbing a liquor store or something. Okay, are we gonna put our code guys out there at Joe's Bayou at the boat ramp going, oh, people are getting on that boat, let's see what the registration is. Oh, there's no BTR, there's no, you know, they haven't registered anything, and I'm going to run out there and cite them, or, you know, how do we enforce where we're going with this? And I got it, it's a 10-step process. But the way I read this, maybe I misread it, because listening to Mr. Destin, I didn't think that the luxury yachts were included because they have captains. This is about boats that don't have captains, that are under the control, you know, of the person who's renting it all the time. What did I miss?
Per Coast Guard, if you're operating a bareboat and you provide the list and they hire a captain off that list, what's going on is the person that is renting the vessel is in charge of the vessel, not the captain. Now, when it's a charter vessel, that captain is in charge of the vessel. So that's the difference with the new this new definition. Is it says where'd it go? Just looking for the language. By the owner to another party for designated period of time, and the party is under control of that vessel at all times. So the captain is not under control. Right. Therefore, it falls under a bareboat.
Right. The control, and the way I read the second part that y'all all said was going to be part of this definition was we will add in an appropriate location. Any person or entity that rents, leases, or charters one or more vessels to another but claims their vessel or vessels are excluded from the definition of a livery vessel because the vessel or vessels are under the control of a United States Coast Guard licensed captain at all times must provide satisfactory evidence to the city of such claim by providing to the city one valid current copy of the captain's license assigned at all times to each excluded vessel. So,
the key thing is one U.S. Coast Guard captain. So
not a list of 3?
Correct.
Well, that's not very clear in that. I'm just gonna, not who's in charge of definitions here, but that, with the way I read that.
Hey, real quick, to Mr. Destin's point and to go along with this conversation, I agree with everybody here. I think they ought to be able to do business here, the yacht boat charters. I think it's a great service. It goes back to the fire department dock, valuable real estate. It is not, we have no jurisdiction over what anybody does outside of the East Pass. If you want to do, what this definition does, in my mind, this was telling me, is if you want to do business in this manner, in this municipality, in this town, you have to abide by this definition. So this definition protects everybody. Now, you're going to be on the hook for your parking, for your bathrooms, your docking, all that stuff. But to me, and the constituents that I spend time with would say that this definition encompasses what should be in place. I don't want them to be out of business. Don't hear me wrong. I think it's a great thing. I would love to send you business if I can. But this protects everybody else in the fleet, and I don't know well, go ahead, Jim.
If I may, so the beginning of the definition that was passed that y'all are looking at, the paragraph, the A and B, and then the paragraph below. So the paragraph below was added in, and it was because it was an entity that claims their vessel is excluded from the definition of livery. So the last paragraph in that definition about presenting a captain's license to the city was to prove that they had a full-time captain that was on the boat all the time. The bareboat charter, to be legal, does not have, the owner of the vessel does not provide a captain. Therefore, when the contract is initiated and signed, the bareboat, the vessel in question, is not under command of any captain. If it was provided by the owner, then it's considered a charter boat or a COI vessel. It's a commercial vessel by Coast Guard. The part that makes it bareboat is that it's a bare crew. So whenever that person signs over to the client that boat is now in their possession, there's no crew provided. And that's what the first part of the definition, the first paragraph in that speaks to, is about not having a captain on it at all, of it not being in control of a captain. The second part was just strictly to provide the way of, if you are saying I'm a charter and I'm not part of the livery, that gives guidance on how the city staff would validate that. And that would be that the owner of the boat would provide a captain's license and say, this guy, this is my captain of this vessel. So I hope that helps clear it up. And the whole point of this is because the fishing and all that stuff, it's all about, like was spoke earlier, there's plenty pieces of pie, and we're going to get it figured out. And your 3 advisory panels, wanted them included in the livery definition and wanted you to act. So please, that's what everybody there wanted. They want you to include them, and they want you to protect these guys that have been in business for a couple of years because of this newfound, this problem that we had, and to protect everybody, including the yachts and everybody else, against an explosion of bareboats. If we don't get this straight and get it in the livery, then there's no containment. They can just keep going. And that was the whole point. That's the whole point of this. Thank you.
Question, Mayor. You guys say you have a BTR license? How did you get it if?
You guys want to come up here, please? Yeah, I just want to.
I think what happened is that staff was giving out BTRs for a while, not realizing that they were violating the code. There was confusion, even on the part of staff and in the public. They didn't know that they were included in the definition. It was gray to many people. So once staff figured out that they didn't have captains all the time and that they were a livery vessel, I don't think they continued issuing the BTR, and here we are.
So no one has a BTR now?
So
I don't believe so.
I can provide a little bit of clarity on that aspect, okay?
That would be good.
So not technically, by law, we cannot deny a BTR. So in the process of clarifying whether or not they are bareboats or charters, what we told them is like, this is a bareboat operation and it is therefore a livery operation. We cannot allow you to operate. So you have two choices. You can either go forward with the BTR, pay for it, and we will issue it because a BTR is not regulatory, it's a tax, or you can withdraw your application. All those emails I can pull up and be provided. That came from planning staff, community development staff, to every BTR individual that applied for a bareboat charter this year and probably last year. Okay? They either withdrew their application, or in this case, they didn't do anything and we're still in limbo land trying to figure this out right now.
So their application was not denied?
No, they were not denied.
All right. Well, that makes it clear as mud.
It was not issued because we didn't get guidance on whether or not they wanted to withdraw the application or if they wanted it to be issued with the understanding that they would not be operable. Because again, BTR is non-regulatory.
So Mr. Stevens got special treatment, his was denied?
So I think mine was a registration that was denied, right? Not a BTR?
I believe the registration was denied, but we also sent you an email stating you have two options, because I remember going through this when all this came about. A lot of this started when the state passed SB 606 and clarified when, I can pull it up, I got it right here.
I mean, obviously, there's been confusion on both sides. So I think the question is, how does council want to handle it? Regardless of all the confusion that went down, if you all tell us how you want to handle it, we will write up the code accordingly.
And that's the point I guess I'm trying to make. We don't have a clue what we're doing tonight. And we're about to pass an ordinance on first reading. That's a very bad way for government to proceed.
I disagree with that, Mr. Destin. I understand exactly what's going on here this evening. I'm not bowing up. I have a very good grip on what's going on here tonight, and I'm a little confused as to other people not understanding what's going on.
Didn't we say earlier that we would not be able to go to a magistrate and win in a case based upon our current way our code's written? Was that stated, or was that not? Did I just? Somebody said that.
I didn't say that. Somebody did.
Do we need clarity in our code to enforce illegal operators?
Legally, I do not think that it was unclear. However, obviously it was in the general public, because look at the confusion. So I do think that staff would find it easier to enforce the code with the clarifications, because it makes it very clear to everybody now. If the intent is to include bareboats as livery vessels, then these clarifications are helpful. If we don't want to include them, then we can write it up that way too. So it's really a policy decision for the council.
Captain Green?
I was going to say, we have 3 committees that just said, let's clear this mud up.
Well, and it's not even that. You sent that to all 3 committees, was to clarify this definition. So, I understand it's a convoluted thing, and I've been doing this my whole life, and I'm telling you, I walk a line on it sometimes. I'm like, but what we're trying to do here is we're trying to we were trying to get the verbiage better, and that was what was brought. That was the charge that was sent to all of us, was that we want your input on what a livery vessel is, and to include bareboat or not. And every one of those committees said, yes, we want them in the livery. And every one of those committees said, yes, we want to make sure that we don't put people out of business, have been in business for 3 or 4 plus years. So, and I know it's semantics, and it bogs us all down, because everybody's trying to wrap their brain around it. And I can understand Mr. Destin's comment about passing this and not understanding it, but this definition came from the last committee, and it's a culmination of all 3. And I mean, like, this is as simplest as it can get. And it also is not just for staff, it's for anybody that's looking to try and come in here and be a bareboat, that they understand the process of the city and how we're operating under a moratorium. So that's where we're at, and I feel very comfortable saying that this is a good culmination of all three of those committees coming together and includes all that.
Councilwoman?
So this is we're not changing the ordinance. We are just relating to the definition and amending the two sections in an already established ordinance so the mud is wiped away.
It's basically wordsmithing, yes, ma'am.
One other question, and if that's where we're going, Jim, and that's where council appears to be going, that we want to change the definition of livery to make it clearer, but at the same time, we do not want to drive these people out of business, then I would think a substitute that would incorporate one of the exceptions tonight, because we are in the ordinance writing process now. If we change it dramatically from now till second reading, we have to go back to first reading. So I would say that, the proper procedure would be to include the definition change, but to exclude, what was the verbiage, vessels over?
Yeah, if you want to come up to address council.
Got to come up so
Got to come up here.
trust me, you want to be on the record.
Hi, Matt Condon back with you. So the simple one-sentence definition was excluding vessels over 32 feet so long as they're operated by a licensed captain and are not engaged in fishing activities.
Jim, is that suitable?
No, sir. All three advisory panels wanted them included in the livery ordinance, and that was to cap the amount of rental vessels that were operating in the Destin area.
Okay, so we could change that exclusion from the 32 feet to those vessels that have been operating in Destin in the last 3 years?
I would agree that you need to make a time certain and from the past. And also, and I know it's a bit, because I had to do this with each one too, because it was hard for us. We passed this and then we passed this, and like Mr. Schmidt said, we don't know what's going to come from the next one. But, the will of our advisory panels and this board is to do something to not put people out of business. And nobody has said anything about putting them out of business. So I think that we go with it in this manner, and then you find out what's the best way. There's registrations, not medallions. There's registrations that are not being used in the city's possession right now. And it's more than 10. So,
and I have those numbers. I'd like to go over that if I get a chance.
And that's what I'm saying. And I know it was convoluted in the last meeting before you sent it to us, and it's still kind of convoluted now, but this definition is kind of crisp. And that was what we were going for. And I really don't think that anybody wants to put anyone out of business, but I do. But it was clear that your advisory panels wanted them included in the livery ordinance. Sir.
What time certain would you suggest?
I think 3 years. I think 2021, somewhere in that nature. That's my assumption, because the bareboat charters have really exploded in the last couple years.
It has.
And I think. I've seen the misbehaving operating longer than 2 years. I think that these folks that have these boats and provide the service are a valuable asset to our community, but it's, we got to find that fine line, and it definitely needs to not include this year, because buddy, there was a lot of them. And I would say even go back to maybe January 2022. And that's my opinion. Some people out there in the public say it should go back before the ordinance, and I don't think that's fair either, because the city allowed them to operate on a mischaracterization of what a bareboat was. These folks were coming in and saying they were a charter, which wasn't a lie, and the city did not have the knowledge at that point how it was really being operated. So I think you got to find that happy median, to be honest.
January 22 capture most of the people that you're aware of?
In my case, I manage 4 boats. One would definitely qualify for that. The other 3 would be put out of business.
First off, I want to make sure we're not putting people out of business. We still have we have registrations. Sorry, Mr. Bagby. We have registrations that are available that the city, that you as a council can do something with. The for hire fishing permits with NOAA, when they wrote the statute, they wrote that if it doesn't get re-registered, if it doesn't be renewed, it turns to dust. We didn't write that in this moratorium. There is registrations that were included in the original moratorium that is not being operated at this time, that the city has the power over. So we really need to get away from this divisive language of talking about putting people out of business. And
But no offense.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm not. It's not an attack on you. I'm just saying that the whole point of this, our side, the yacht side, everybody's up here positioning. And I think if the advisory panel said don't put anyone out of business. I hadn't seen anybody up on this panel say put anyone out of business. So let's quit talking about that. Figure out the definition, and then figure out what to do with the registrations that you have so that we don't put anyone out of business.
Well, the thing is, putting them in the definition puts the moratorium on them, okay? So if they're in the definition, there's a moratorium that says they can't operate. So unless we do something with them, it is actually telling them they can't operate.
Can we add grandfathering in it?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier, but to Captain Green's point and Teresa Hebert's point, and to what I was saying earlier, there's things you can do to address it. You can exempt them, as Councilmember Destin just said. You can create an exemption for the size of the boat for yachts if you want to, or you don't have to create an exemption. You could give them a year, 2 years, or whatever time frame to come into compliance so that they're not out of business. Then we could deal with the registrations at a subsequent meeting. So there's other options to deal with the existing businesses to not put them out of business. But if you don't take those options, you would certainly be telling them they can't operate. We have a moratorium, and they'd be a livery vessel.
All right, so with that,
Exactly.
and, yeah, go ahead.
One other clarifying question. If we, tonight's first reading, if we put into this that there is a time certain that they would be exempt, but we don't say what the time certain is, when we go to the next reading, when we insert that time certain, would that cause us to have to go back to first reading?
I don't think so, because the title is still clear as to what we're talking about, so the public has notice. So I don't think that you would need to go back to first reading. If you want to go back, you can, but it's not legally required.
Okay, in that case, let me make a motion that is a substitute to adopt the definition changes, but to put into the ordinance that we are going to have an exemption that is based on a time certain, having been in business.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Councilman Stevens.
All right, yeah. So I want to go a little more detail with the registration. So back in 2021, there was a total of 464 livery registrations. So that was the moratorium number. So in 2024, we have a total of 440. So that leaves us with 24 registrations that are in attrition right now. So I believe that number, we can bring them back to life. We would not go over the current moratorium. And so between that number, let's say if there's 24 applications for these registrations, or let's say there's more than 24 that apply for it, then at that point, we should probably go into a lottery system to where everyone has an opportunity to get it. Maybe the ones that had their BTR in 2021, we hold X amount of registrations for them. I mean, we can discuss that. But the thing is, we have medallions sitting that are no longer being used. And even, I called around to see how many medallions are no longer being used with current businesses that have active registrations. So Sea Chase has 8 that are not available. Happy says he has 17, but they said they have about half available. Tailfins has 12 that are not available. So between the 24 that are in attrition, plus the potential 28 that these businesses have, that would leave us with 52 registrations. So I don't think we'll be putting these businesses out of business, and it gives them the ability to acquire these registrations.
Just remember, it's not just registrations. So when they come under this, they not only need to be registered, they need to have the parking, they need to have the bathrooms, and they need to have all of the things the code requires.
Correct.
So just getting a medallion will not allow them to operate. I'm sorry, I'm using the lingo, but it is a registration.
So I mean, one of the things that we can add in there is whenever a business applies for this hopefully one-time lottery opportunity, that their packet has to be complete, showing their bathrooms, how many parking spots they need, showing all the paperwork. I mean, just like what the Livery application was from the very get-go. And that way, it actually gives the businesses that have been in operation since 2001 an advantage over a business that may be trying to get in or has not been doing it correctly. So, real quick.
Can I ask you real quick?
Yes.
When you say businesses, do you mean businesses as a whole or registrations? Because some of these businesses have been in business since 2021 and they have brought on multiple new boats. So my question is, are you talking about business or are you talking about registration?
So each registration would be assigned to one vessel. So if one business has 4, then they would need 4 registrations. Yeah. So.
I'm saying if a business opened up in 2020, they qualify. If they brought on 3 new boats in 2024, did those 3 new registrations qualify?
Qualify for?
For
to register?
For a grandfathering in or whatever it is.
Or the lottery, whatever method we go. I mean, that's for us to debate. I would figure you want to give the advantage to the ones that probably were doing it correctly in 2021, give them first opportunity. I mean, I would feel at least.
Yeah, you can almost go chronological all the way up to today, and if there's any left, then you raffle off those that have all the requirements per the code. And just first come, first serve, going backwards to present, and then raffle off everything from there. But again, we haven't voted on that. All right, we do have a substitute motion on the floor. Yep. Yeah, trying to wrap this in.
I have 2 questions.
Bring this in.
One for the luxury yacht folks. You said you had 4 that you manage, and only, yeah, come on back up, because I want to make sure you said, because
Get it right.
Because now I kind of starting to see the other side of this. You said you had 4
Yes, sir.
that you currently manage,
Yep.
but if we retroactively went back to they had to be in business 3 years, that only 1 would qualify.
Yeah, I acquire these customers from boat sales. And so if you were talk to me about buying a boat and you say, hey, I'm not really going to use it that much, I'll say, well, why don't you buy it and put it in light charter and we'll manage it for you. There's some advantages to doing that. And so particularly thinking of several boats that I've sold recently that I'd have to call and say, hey, Destin's implemented this new rule. They've clarified an old rule, my apologies. You're not out of business, but you can't do business. And they would have to go to Fort Walton or Sandestin to operate in the Destin waters. And we'd lose that revenue, lose that customer. If I could make one clarifying comment, the reason this is so tortured is because we're taking a rental vessel ordinance and trying to apply it to captained operated vessels that are operating as bareboat charter only under contract, not in reality. What I mean by that is, Coast Guard will get mad at me, but we operate under the effect of the bareboat charter law. We don't give people our yachts. They have to choose one of these 3 licensed captains. So if, well, one customer in particular, a 45 Silverton, he fishes and cruises, so he would close his cruising business and strictly fish 6-pack. 6-pack is a very operable charter for fishing. For private yachts, bachelorette parties, bereavement tours where we spread ashes, it's not practical to operate with only 6. So they have to operate by this bareboat charter rule in order to get to 12. So in my opinion, that's why this whole thing's tortured. And I really am having a heck of a time thinking that we're going to be the only town in the country that has such a rule. And I understand it evolved from rentals, but yet it still will be the only one. And
you answered my question.
Back.
I am not in the interest of protecting the guys that you sold boats to last summer as much as I'm interested in protecting the folks that have been doing this kind of business for 3 years or more. So I was like, maybe this is where the explosion is coming from. So I got your answer.
I can think of one boat that's been operating for 4 years or longer.
Okay.
So
well, 3 years, maybe, and maybe we come back and say, 2 years, because we have 52 registrations. Thank you. Okay. Captain, I have a question for you. You sit on all three committees, and you know everybody on all those committees. How many members of those three committees come from the luxury yacht business?
None that would be the luxury yacht business.
Bill McKissick?
Bill McKissick, which he sells boats also.
Okay.
And you know, I also wanted to add something, Mr. Bagby, if I may.
Sure.
One of our committees also talked about, and I was kind of waiting, I didn't want to convolute the waters more because we were talking about the definition, but one of our committees, I believe it was the Harbor and Waterways with Mr. McKissick, we talked about having some qualifiers on the yacht thing, which is another, it might convolute it a little bit, but if we're worried about protecting yachts, and the few yachts that there are, they had over a certain feet, had a galley, had a head, had a stateroom, so that it wasn't a pontoon boat or something. So there's a little bit more. I know it just adds to the confusion, but there's a little bit more if we're talking about wanting to protect the yachts too. So I mean, you could make it to where you could classify what a yacht is if that's where the way you're going with it, and then you could talk about how you distribute your registrations, not medallions, in that manner.
See, well, no, I'm just trying to be fair. Somebody that said, oh, it's kind of like, no offense, short-term rentals. You can buy this nice house in Crystal Beach and you have a beautiful view of the Gulf and everything, and oh, times got a little hard, or, well, I only come down 5-6 times a year. Don't worry, I can rent it for you. And next thing I know, I've got 48 people in the house next to me. No, okay. So I'm trying to protect a specific subset of people that provide a service and have provided a service in this town for a while. Not somebody that is just looking for a little. Your guy that he can make it a fishing boat the whole time, and if he's eligible or gets the lottery or whatever, God bless him.
Just to clarify something you said, you got your list, you have the ability as a bareboat, if they can pick anyone from the list, you can't suggest, but if you don't like them, you can say, never mind, it's voided, the contract's voided?
It's never happened, but it's, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to see if that was
Yeah, I mean, we do
legal
have.
position.
We have what's called a named operator insurance policy. So we list all the captains, and the insurance company does a little bit of background
Yeah.
checking and verification. So we could attempt to add the client's captain to
Okay.
that charter.
Gotcha. That was my only clarifying question on that, from that comment. All right, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Stevens? Yeah, just turn that off.
I guess the only comment I got is if we do allow these, the bareboats to go around the moratorium, the livery operators would probably want the same ability to be able to, because they put captains on the pontoon boats also. So you would have to do the same for them. So just kind of keep that in mind too, guys.
All right, does anyone have anything that would make this any more confusing? I'm really reluctant to open the floor back up to the, yeah. Well, not yet
Gary Troop, 86 Shira, misbehaving. So, this whole thing of chartering sort of like a bareboat, it exists also in aircraft. So you can, if you own a private aircraft, you can set it up so that it's, the person hires a pilot, they do that, and that's what you do to offset the cost of it. So it happens in boats too. So it happens in boats everywhere. And, I hear this talk about, it's exploded here in Destin. I may be naive, but I asked Matt, I said, how many are there, because I'm not down there at the harbor. He goes, I think there's probably about 12 operating right now. That's not an explosion, in my opinion. But Captain,
That's
do you
less
have a
than
better
12.
number?
I wasn't speaking to just yachts, private yachts. I was speaking to the bareboat industry in general, not specifically
Okay, I
explosion
misunderstood that
yachts.
then. But, I still want to make the point that, whether it's a boat or an airplane, this stuff's all legal, and it does help people offset the cost. And Councilman Bagby, some people like that Matt will be their clients. That boat's not chartered all that often, but it does offset the cost of, a dock. So I mean, you're going to exclude those people that might be buying a boat and putting it in Destin if you say, hey, you can't do what you can do in every other city.
Can I ask a question real quick?
If I was in the boat business, I'd be here today saying, don't do that.
Mr. Troop, if you fall under this new rule, why can't you go register to be a livery vessel?
We will.
Okay.
And as long as it isn't too expensive, we will. We'll make that decision whether we're going to continue.
And you have a dock, you have.
We do. We have all those
So
things.
you would get one.
I would get one if it was reasonably priced. I would, which,
Right,
I
but
expect
even
to
if it's
pay exactly what-
$20,000, like somebody stated, I mean, you potentially make that in a few weekends.
I would
so.
I would rethink it probably moving.
But you will be able to get one, and you'll be able to still operate.
Yeah, I guess there's some on the market, but I would make the decision whether I'd move out of Destin at that point, because I just think it's extortion. There's no reason why somebody should be granted that from the city council. It goes completely against everything I believe in.
Okay,
So
appreciate it.
Well, but if I wanted to offset the cost of my mortgage and move somewhere else, I can't rent my house out short-term like they can in every other city. That makes sense? It's the same situation. I can't do that because it's against the code of ordinances for me to rent my house out Airbnb.
Yeah, but oddly
where I
enough,
live.
you approved it in my neighborhood. You just decided you didn't want to do it in Old Destin. You let Crystal Beach be.
I didn't do that.
Well, I'm talking about city council, not you personally.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to go back on something earlier tonight, and I don't know. I've never heard about this sign ordinance earlier that you were talking about, and I don't think most people have. But if Mr. Bagby's assumption is correct, you're going to push them all to Crystal Beach. It's like you're doing it to me again. Anyway, I digress.
All right. Captain, just for the sake of fairness, you'll be my last one, and we will vote on this. We will change a line or two in this. This is why I'm a libertarian. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. So, as Mr. King pointed out, the vessel that tried to go from 6-pack to over 6, that idea, that light bulb, came from here. See what I'm saying? So, and I'm very familiar with that situation. And trust me, I don't want to get into all that. But that light bulb came from there. But the one thing that struck me is, I believe it was this gentleman, brought up earlier, the Army Corps of Engineers and the capacity. So if this gentleman continued to sell boats under the premise of them doing that, wouldn't that add into this capacity issue the Army Corps of Engineers says you have? Or am I misunderstanding?
I think that's where he was going with. There's 52 open, so as long as that would cap it, that would still cap it at that 400 that initially started this whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
who seconded the substitute motion?
Pick one.
No, they all said Teresa. Definition change.
Only because you were the chairman. Final words.
I appreciate that latitude, Mr. Mayor. So the capacity study was the study of how many vessels are operating in our infrastructure in the harbor. A 100-foot wide channel. It would be the equivalent of having a 2-lane road between here and Panama City today instead of 25 years ago. It's not that there's too many vessels in the harbor, it's that there's too many vessels operating with the infrastructure that we have in the harbor. That's one of the hardest things we had with the capacity study. It's not how many boats in the harbor, it's how many boats, it's how many cars on the road, it's how many boats in the channel. Our capacity is overwhelmed on our infrastructure in a 100-foot wide channel. That's the point of the capacity study. I heard everybody talking about getting rid of boats, too many boats. That's not what it's saying. It's saying that we have too many boats for what we have legal channel for people to go through the harbor with. Few things that I'm hearing here. Planes are different. You have to have a license to run a plane. You can't take off in a plane legally. A boat, you don't have to have a license unless you're over 65 feet or a certain tonnage. So, and then I hear that these boats are only running every once in a while, but then I also hear they're big contributors to our economy. So which one is it? Are the boats, these yacht charters not running a whole lot, or are they actually contributors to the economy? So again, I think I really want us to do the definition.
All right.
Because you put a ton of your time into it, right? And figured it out because you're the chairman of
At
these
this
three
point,
boards,
I am
right?
roughly over, in chairman and patron of this type of meeting, I'm close to 12 hours.
All right. Does anyone need a reminder of what the substitute motion is on the floor? If not, I will be calling the vote. Yes? Ray, good luck.
Do you want me to read everything that Mr. Bagby read earlier?
As much as
No,
it takes to clarify.
Substitute motion is exempt businesses based on the time that have been in operations.
It's the Harbor Board definition with the tweaks by Councilmember Stevens plus what Ray just said.
Yep. Remove the contract, add electric, and substituting creates the exempt of time. We're going to keep it open so we can move this forward to second, and then hopefully get a little bit more clarification on what that time may or may not be. All righty.
Yes. So that would allow the yachts, the former bareboat charters, but the luxury yachts to get a registration. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, because there's going to be that exempt of time.
Yeah, okay. So we'll make sure I understand.
Yeah. Okay. Call the vote. All right, ayes have it, 6-1. All righty.
That's it.
6, Councilman Stevens.
I have nothing else tonight.
Councilman Guile.
No way will I add anything
Come on,
else.
let's go through all CIP projects. Councilman Destiny.
Nothing tonight.
Councilman Bagby.
Well, I did, but I think I'm going to move. Is Troy back there? How long is your presentation? Because I didn't see it.
It's about 5 minutes. Discussion from staff.
Okay.
Everything after that, I have no control.
Okay.
Yeah, move it to the next.
Yeah, I want to move it to the next
it.
meeting. 10
Yeah,
o'clock
we're
is
getting
late
late.
enough.
Let's go.
Councilwoman Hebert.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilman King.
Just a handful of things.
Councilman Schmidt.
Yeah, real quick. Andy, could you help me out, please? Can you pull up cityofdestin.com website for me?
I want to go page by page.
I have some folks asking how to do something. I'd like for it to be shown to the people that are watching. Is that possible? Can we put that on the screen to be seen? Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay.
While he's working on that,
Yeah.
can I just give you an update on 222
Yes.
Cybert?
Please.
Okay, so the staff and the city manager went over there and spoke with the property owner. He did indicate that he wanted to come into compliance. He's not in compliance as of today. However, Troy went back out today, and I wanted to give Troy the opportunity to let you know if he's working in good faith towards compliance. Troy, do you want to give them a very quick answer to that?
Very quick.
Yes, I went over there twice today, once in the morning, and Mr. Marler was working hard on removing the stuff from the front of his property. It was as clean as I've ever seen it since I've been here. And then I went back in the afternoon to check again, and he was still out there working and making more headway. So I believe he's making good faith effort to trying to come into compliance. Obviously, there's a lot there. Can't speak so much as to behind the fence, but everything out front of the fence that you can see from the roadway, a lot of it's been cleared. I would say a good 85% of it.
So with that, I think we were going to maybe not file until I give you another update at the next meeting. Perfect. Okay, if everyone's good with that. Okay, thanks.
All right, at least four head shakes.
I have a little bit of a family emergency, so with that, I'm going to leave.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
So I had some people asking me about the RFB process. Mr. Burgess shared with us, if you click I want to, and right there, I want to, and then view bids and RFPs. Yeah. So right here, it has a option to click on something. But the question I've been getting from people is after they click on the right-of-way and grounds maintenance continuing contract, how do they bid?
They would need to get it through the clerk's office because we need to maintain a list of bid holders. That way, if we issue an addendum, we'll know who all needs to get that addendum. So you don't get the RFP directly from the website, but you can find out that we have one advertised, and then you can get one from the clerk's office.
Okay, just a feedback if you don't mind. I know it's late. Because I know we have an issue with people submitting bids. Maybe this is part of it. Nowhere that I could see on there does it tell me to contact the clerk's office to do something. It just says contact person. I mean, I was expecting a link to apply, to contact, I mean, just something. So if possible, could we add something on there that makes it just a little bit easier for somebody to submit a bid to the city of
Absolutely, yeah.
Destin?
That's not a problem.
If possible. Okay, so, but in the meantime, they need to contact the contact person to then request to do a bid. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if they're interested in getting a copy of a bid,
Contact the
contact the clerk's office, then that would be sent to them electronically.
Yeah.
And we would
If y'all
collect
can
their
make some minor
information.
tweaks to make it easier for people to get more bids, I think
Hey,
a lot of people
I'm
appreciate it.
all for it. No, that's good.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, all right. Whatever your title is, Larry.
Thank you, sir. One last simple request. At your October 21st meeting, which will be your next meeting, we need to convene the CRA board at 5:30 to take care of some business related to the debt issuance that you approved earlier moving forward with, but there needs to be some action by the CRA board to support that. So we will make that announcement and get it properly noticed. So 5:30 at your next meeting, we'll meet as the CRA board.
Awesome. I have nothing, and city attorney opted out for nothing. Public comments?
None. Slam it. Slam it.
All right, it's 9:50. This meeting is adjourned.